Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the Know Your Gear QA live show number 248. We're back. We're alive. We made it. I made it. So if you are returning to the show and you were on episode number 247 when I said, "Hey, I think my sinuses are getting to me today." Well, in retrospect, I got COVID. So apparently, what I thought was a tickle and on my throat and a little bit of sinuses was apparently COVID Omicron Decepticon virus taking over my body. In fact, I guess if you rewatch that show, you can literally see it happening in real time. As shortly after that show, I was pretty much dead sick. I made it about 2 hours after the show before the fevers kicked in. And on Saturday, I went and tested, and I tested positive. And my wife, unfortunately, tested. Well, she tested negative that day, but then within 24 hours from that, she had it too. My children, children being young adults that both drive, they tested. They were both negative, so we put them in a hotel for 9 days. So they were in a hotel. So that was a nice little safe thing to do. Obviously, and so my wife and I are doing better. Couple things I want to talk about before we start the show. Something that I wish I would have known. I have a friend who's a retired surgeon. His wife is a nurse who works at the hospital for when people get COVID and go to the hospital. I did not go to the hospital. Like I said, I just kind of worked through it. And but I am here to tell you, because these are very hard to get, I want to share this with you guys. Think of this as a public service message for the community. These things, I'm going to say it's Cipracol, just CEPACOL, extra strength. My wife texted our friend who's a nurse at the hospital, and one of the things, I guess, if you get the Omicron version, you get this really bad, I call it glass throat. It tastes like you're swallowing glass. It's really horrible. It's one of the worst things about this virus is the sore throat. This comes in a spray, and it also is these lozenges. The reason I'm telling you about that, lost audio. Hope you guys can hear me fine. Everything looks fine on my end. But the thing that's important about these is we were lucky, and my son found some. So if you look on Amazon and stuff, you'll see these are out of stock everywhere. So I would think about these. If you end up getting it, these numb your throat. And like I said, there's apparently a spray, but we couldn't find the spray. But this literally was, I dare not say a lifesaver, but literally, it made what was a pretty horrible flu a little less horrible. So definitely check those out. Like I said, please don't hoard them or do anything stupid. But I don't think it's unreasonable if you haven't had the virus yet, or you think you might, or somebody in your family might get this. Maybe buy a box of these. This is all you'll need, by the way. And just so you guys don't know it, so you guys don't go crazy. You can only take one of these, I think, every 2 hours minimum, 2 hours apart. That's how strong they are. So you won't need more than a package like this, I promise. In fact, you can see we have lots left from our experience. Thank you, everybody, for the well wishes and stuff. It was pretty good. As you know, as soon as I could, which is about Monday or Tuesday this week, I started working again. Started with half days on Monday, just kind of working and then take a nap. And then, and going from there. So getting stuff done and back to normal. And of course, my whole drive this week was to be ready for today's show. And we're here. We did it. Now we can talk about guitar and hopefully talk about things that are fun. Not a lot of guitar news this week, but I'm sure you guys have a lot of cool subjects to talk about for sure. Okay, so James Dean Anderson says, "Hey, you look a lot better, way more color and energy." Yeah, look at this point. I probably have what it feels like to me the tail end of a cold at best. So yeah, I feel pretty good. But keep in mind, it was For those of you, I couldn't find a whole lot of information when I had COVID. I'd look on the internet, I didn't feel very good, but I look on the internet, like how long does it last? Everything's like, oh, different ages, different people, depending on your comorbidities, all that stuff. It's different for everybody. For me and my wife, we were very consistent with the experience. It was 3 really excruciating days where it just felt like the worst flu we've ever had. And then 3 days of like crappiness and crud. But you felt like you were at least past the hard part. And then after that, it was just each day you just slowly start getting better. So for us, it was, well, that sounds like 6 days. It was really like 5 days. 5 days, 3 days hardcore, 2 days, not so great, still running fevers and stuff. And then after that, it's just, so there you go. I just thought I'd share that with you guys. And that's the one thing I can tell you. Susan says Sweetwater putting those lunges instead of sweets now. Yeah. Like I said, I normally wouldn't talk about stuff like this, but like I said, we were very lucky. My son was able to find just a box of these. And, I guess cause if, everybody finds out too late when they already have it. So there you go, on that note. And for the record, how I think I got it, cause that's maybe important to talk about. Cause here's what's funny. I really don't go out in public. In fact, in the month of January, I probably was exposed to maybe 6 or 7 people total for the entire month. I'm pretty sure I got it at the dentist. I went to the dentist basically the day before you guys saw me on that show. I went to the dentist for my yearly teeth cleaning x-rays and stuff. And that was my long contact point. And it just so happened Arizona was having a surge of this at that time. It was like 2,000 cases went to 18,000 cases a day within just a couple days. So another thing to pay attention to if you're out there is pay attention to the case loads. I guess as it starts to spread, it spreads very quickly and then it backs off very quickly. So there you go. And if you guys have questions about it, we can talk about it later too. But I think we should talk about guitars. And we have some great questions already. J.R. White was the very first comment question today. He says, Phil, I hope you're feeling better. I came here for the drops of knowledge, but I always stay for the humor. What is your take on whether weight relief Les Pauls sound different? Well, it's tough. It's a tough thing. The whole weight relief thing. Is there a tone difference just by drilling some holes or cutting cavities in guitars? What I think is, this is what I really kind of feel when I've dealt with guitars. For some reason, and as you guys know, I like lighter guitars. I like the guitars that are not so heavy. It's just a personal preference. It's not a tone preference or anything like that. But somehow I've noticed over the years that really heavy guitars, probably because they're really dense, obviously, even whether they're full of moisture or the wood is very dense and very, either way, the weight seems to always change the overall EQ of the guitar. Tone is an interesting thing to talk about, the word tone. Sometimes we just mean EQ. To me, the harder guitars, harder woods, denser woods seem to sound brighter. And I don't mean necessarily tone woods because again, it's not even like I don't mean like this type of wood is brighter sounding than the other type of wood. I mean, literally 2 pieces of the same kind of wood, but one is heavier, tends to have a brighter tone. And I think that is, and again, this is just a theory, like most of us have. I think it's because how it vibrates, you know what I mean? How the string reacts to the density of the wood. Sometimes the pickups, the string doesn't move the same, and the pickups, obviously, I think the tone is coming from the pickups. The sound is really coming from the pickups. However, the pickups do have to, have the magnetic field, and the string does have some kind of reaction to this. For instance, a good example is just strings in themselves. I've talked about this in the past. I use different types of strings for different types of guitars. For the best example of that is one of my favorite packs of strings to use is D'Addario Pure Nickels. Pure Nickels, not nickel wound. They're called Pure Nickels. I use, I think, 10 to 45s. That's correct, by the way, 45, not 46. And I will put them on, for instance, they're on any guitar that's really bright sounding to me, just overly bright. I will throw Pure Nickels on them because of the fact that the way the pickups pick them up, way that magnetic field, it softens it. I also personally think that vintage guitars or vintage reissue guitars, I think they sound better with Pure Nickels on them. It's one of the things the first things I do when I get a vintage type instrument, like I said, whether it's a reissue or an actual instrument, is I might change them over to pure nickels. I just think it sounds more, I don't want to say correct. It sounds more like, I guess, period correct. It sounds, because that's what they used, obviously, originally, was pure nickel strings for a long time. And so on weight relieved, what I would say is I wouldn't say that it makes necessarily a difference in sound as so much as every guitar sounds different. I would, obviously, I think a lot of stories like that start with somebody like, obviously look at Eddie Van Halen. There's a famous story with Eddie Van Halen where he took his, I think it's the Ibanez Destroyer. Please forgive me if it's not the right model number, but I think it's the Ibanez Destroyer. And he took a drill, right, and drilled some holes and then cut the big chunk out of the out of the center, and then put a little chain thing. Again, it's not like a chain thing, but again, you guys can Google and find this out exactly if you Google what guitar I'm talking about right now. And he said, and I read the article where he said the guitar never sounded the same after he did that, after he took that big chunk of wood out of the guitar. Again, anyone, even a master like Eddie Van Halen, is susceptible to placebo effect. You know, the idea that you feel like it's not the same after and before. There's an emotional response. A perfect analogy for that would be, you have a car you love the way it drives, and maybe it gets in and I'm not talking about serious accident, I'm just talking about like a small fender bender in a parking lot. They fix it, and then you feel it's never the same again. And sometimes it could be, because it could be knocked out and they never align it correctly. But a lot of times it's just mental. It's not the same to you. You know, something has changed. There's an emotional thing that I think that if you don't address with guitar players, with musicians, we don't talk about the psychology of what we do versus, the science, which everybody wants to go to, but they forget this is an emotional thing, making music. You know what I mean? It's just the reality of it. You don't listen to music because of science. You listen to music because of emotion. It creates joy, happiness, same thing, fear, anger, love, remorse. You know what I mean? That's what music does for us. Things that make music, they are going to have an emotional connection. And so I don't really necessarily believe scientifically drilling a hole in a guitar is going to create a whole lot of sound difference. But I think there is, again, a psychological aspect that's there. And I've learned to deal with it in my own way. And also I've learned that it's real. I think I just recently did a pod clip where I released out a thing where we talk about tone. And one of the things I said is, even when I think I know better, I can't help but hear or see things because of that emotional thing. And I'm okay with that. Like I said, I'm okay with it. I'm learning like everybody else. Somebody asked a question, it ties in because it's just Les Paul. Somebody asked me if I ended up keeping the Les Paul Gibson Custom Shop Historic RO. I did not. What happened was, like I said, I bought that guitar in hopes that I was like, well, it was a little lighter, 8 pounds, 8.5 pounds, or less than 8.5 pounds, I should say. And the neck was slightly thinner than my Gibson R9. They were the identical color. If you look at them, they look like almost the identical guitar. And I purchased it thinking that, it didn't have to be better. It didn't have to be better than my R9. I just was hoping it was anything close to my R9. And when I unboxed it, slowly, there's a couple things that I didn't, if you guys watch that video, you'll see a couple things that were like, failures of details. But overall, the guitar just felt like, and this is my second, maybe third time on the channel where I felt this way, where it's not that I'm so much critiquing the guitar, it's a vibe that the guitar gives you. The vibe is, man, this felt like it was rushed, or the employee who was putting hands on this didn't care, or it was just a bad day at the factory. Either way, that guitar just starts vibing a certain way to you. And it was a lot of money. That guitar was $6,700. That's a lot of money. I didn't really tell you guys what store it came from. And the reason is because I want to really talk about how, so I'll tell you the store now, because again, I kind of find like the podcast is more of an inner circle of guitar players and not just the average person that can stumble across a YouTube video and watch it, not be vested in the channel, me, anything like that. It was More Guitars is the company, and they took care of me on a expert perfect level. My experience with them was one of the best purchasing experiences I've ever had with a music retailer, even. And so, if I could have found anything, and I tried for 2 weeks, that's why, like I said, the video got pushed so far back, because I was trying to give you the end of the story. What ends up happening? Did I send the guitar back and get my refund, or did I send the guitar back and get something else? I was trying to keep my money at more guitars. I had spent at least 2 weeks checking daily on their website to see if any kind of cool guitars came in. At this point, if I could just find a guitar for $1,000, something, just to keep some of the money in there. And so without a doubt, I'll be finding a reason to purchase from them again in the future. When I sent them, I didn't send them the video. In fact, I don't know to this day if they even know I made a video, or if I'm a YouTuber or anything like that. I sent them an email with my concerns, and I just basically said, look, I don't think I'm bonding with this guitar, and these are the issues I think that are with the guitar. So I did not ask for a full refund. They issued entirely full refund, including they paid to return the instrument. I think a little bit of that was because, of course, the scratch underneath the finish of the guitar, and maybe they felt like they didn't catch that either. I gotta tell you, it was obviously that's why if you look at the edit of that video, in the initial unboxing, I didn't even see that mark in the neck. I had seen everything else and I kind of talked about it. It was kind of like after the video's done, and then later I picked up the guitar. It was actually when I was picking up the guitar and I was thinking, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm digging this guitar. And then I saw the scratch, and what I didn't really kind of focus on the video, because it wasn't really a important part there, was I was immediately, as soon as I saw the scratch, I go, oh my God, I scratched this guitar. I don't know how it's possible. I've only played it for all 10 minutes. And I thought, well, I guess I'm keeping this guitar because I've damaged it. And that's when I saw, like, wait a minute, I'm like rubbing it going, I can't feel the scratch, but I mean, it was so there, obvious. I'm like, how can I not feel it? And that's when I realized that they had coated over it at Gibson. And I was really let down by the overall experience of that guitar. I will tell you this, I don't plan to buy another Gibson Custom Shop instrument ever again. I think I'm going to stick with one of my original thoughts back with Gibson, which is I like Gibsons, but I think at this point it's more of I got to try it before I buy it experience with Gibson. I got to know what I'm getting into. I just don't think they're good enough to buy unseen like that. Isn't that sad? But it's true. Yeah, like I said, it was the thing. I've seen, and like I said, I don't want to kind of make it sound like they were, it was a horrible experience. It was not a horrible experience. Like I said, the retailer was fantastic. And overall, I could tell you, they didn't offer me a discount. And if they would have, I probably still wouldn't have kept it, just because of the expense of that instrument. It was such an expensive thing that it's not like I was looking for perfect, but I was definitely not looking for what felt like, a secondhand or second B stock type guitar. So there you go. I did end up buying something else. There will be a video. And at this, I can tell you safely that guitar is fantastic. The guitar I got, there's a part of the story, again, I don't want to kind of make it too confusing for you guys, but if you were paying attention to last episode, when I talked about a friend of mine going to Rainbow Guitars down in Tucson and scheduling an appointment and having a meeting and buying a guitar, that is the guitar I ended up doing because, like I said, I had, like anybody, I'd already decided I was going to make this expense, and I didn't spend anything close to that number, but I was able to go down there, have an appointment, and put my hands on an actual instrument that I actually do love. So there you go. I still plan to do the Gibson R9 versus the Epiphone 59 Les Paul video and stuff like that. Like I said, I sadly enough, I think a lot of the comments, of course, are all over that video, but the one comment I want to kind of hit with you guys again that I do agree with. There's, obviously I don't agree with everything you guys put in the comments, but one thing I do agree with is it is, as much as I love the history of Gibson, the story of the Gibson guitars, I said history already, the artists that use them, I just feel like Epiphone kills it every time. And sometimes I'm just wondering, like, why do I feel so like I have to go for the Gibson every time? When I pick up, I find most of the times I'm actually chasing a Gibson. It's because I played an amazing Epiphone, and I'm like in my head going, yeah, but I want to have the real thing. And I at this point, I think, I've proven it on the channel more times than not. When you find a good guitar, you should play it, you should buy it, you should play it, you should love it, and not force another guitar to be as good. So, Kowal Guitar Life said, get the Dave Mustaine Gibson. I have it marked on my videos. Old England, I guess, did a review of the V, and I haven't watched it yet. As you guys know, I have the YouTube Premium, so I download a lot of stuff. As being sick, you'd think I'd watch tons of this stuff. I actually, because I was sick with my wife, and we were just vegging in the family room for a week. We ended up watching the entire 4 seasons of The Crown. I highly don't recommend that. We purposely did it thinking that it would be so boring that we would put ourselves to sleep and we'd sleep most of the flu through. And instead, nope. It was boring. Just apparently we were just too under the weather to pass out. So we just watched it. That was pretty horrible. But like I said, yeah, somebody says, please don't forget to play Authentic. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, and there's some cool guitar videos coming up that I'll finish editing, and I think you guys will like now. Okay, so let's go to the next. The next one comes from Kevin. Kevin said, welcome back, Phil. Glad you're feeling better. Do flat wound strings wear your frets down faster than round wounds? And in my experience, the answer would be no. The reason is because most flat wound strings use a ribbon wrapped around them. So think of it like, we're mostly talking about the physical strings that are the core wire wrapped with an outer wire. And a lot of times round core wires or round wound wires are a round wire wrapped with another round wire, which is where we have the ridges, right? And flat wounds, although there is some where they grind those kind of smooth, most of them are using a ribbon that is flat wrapped around that, and it kind of seams up nice and tight like so. And that makes it really smooth. Technically, there's a couple things. First of all, my experience with worn frets is usually that comes from the cowboy chords or for playing the same patterns over and over and over and over again on the same frets at the same, over and over again. And also sometimes vibrato, because that's physically two pieces of metal wearing on each other. Flat wound strings, typically players do not do as much vibrato, although it is common, it is not very common. That's why they make something called a semi-flat wound. Eric Johnson's known for playing a semi-flat wound, where again, it's more like what I talked about. It's a round wire wrapped around and then of course kind of smashed a little flat so that they still have a gap. So there's a little bit of a flex for the string. And so, no, in my experience, if that was something you're concerned about, like you don't want to get flat wounds, but you're afraid of fret wire, wearing out. No, I would say not only would it be not likely to happen faster, it would actually be better for the longevity of your frets. And I would even say that even if you were to use stainless steel flat wound strings, I'd still say that's pretty safe. Because again, physically, what's going to wear those spots is friction. That makes sense. And the flat ones are going to have a lot less friction, not only because you don't bend them, because they're really hard to bend. That ribbon kind of lines up on top of each other. It makes it really hard. A lot of players have played flat wounds know what I'm talking about. It's really hard, especially bass players like them for that reason too. You slide more, you slide into position and less bending. So there you go. That's why jazz players like flat wounds. Rounder feelings, rounder sound, and of course less vibrato. Frank Rizzo says, Phil, can you please give some alternates to the Spark amp? Thank you. That's a great question, and that's why I highlighted it, because that is something I'd like to do is maybe highlight something besides Katana / Spark. I feel like the Katana Spark's overtaken the market. I would love it if you guys would put some suggestions in the comments of combo or practice amps, especially practice amps. Let's say anything sub $500 that you would like to see on the channel. I will definitely purchase them and put them on the channel. That's something I can do. And I'm very curious. Like, for instance, PV came out with a new series of Viper amps. I saw there was an announcement. As you know, I like to pick at Peavy's bones, so to speak, is what I do on the channel. But as I always said, I'm always waiting for them to redeem themselves. I would love to find out if that's true. Somebody says the Mustang Micro is pretty sweet. Again, like I said, throw the suggestions this way. I'd love to check them out. I kind of feel like Yamaha THR is definitely a great amp if you're looking for a Spark, not Spark kind of amplifier. You know what I mean? It's in the vein of what Spark does. And obviously it's in the same price point, maybe a little bit more than Spark, a little bit, but very, very good. I would definitely recommend the Yamaha THR 10. Somebody's saying orange code, exactly, a code, Marshall code, I'm sorry. And then of course, orange amps. I would love to check them out and do some videos, especially under the idea that, you know, hey, some alternatives. In fact, I'd like to title them that way too. Alternatives to the Katana Spark. I feel like those two amps, for some reason, maybe it's the YouTube hype train that gets out there, you know, that we're all part of, all these channels, where, you know, companies send us stuff and then of course we get excited. And of course, like I said, it's a reactive community, most channels, right? Which means whatever you're excited about, I'm excited about, and vice versa. Richard said the Bad Cat Paw. My understanding is there's another version of the Bad Cat Paw on its way. And we talked about before, you know, I got sick, definitely going to California. What's nice is that's the one good thing that happened from this is, obviously at this point I've had it and so maybe it'll be a little safer for travel in the future. I don't know. We'll see. I'll definitely still be diligent and safe, but, you know, being a little nicer to have that out of the way. And so I definitely plan to go to see Bad Cat, those guys in California, and do some videos. Fox the Hound said, but Spark got the influencers hard. You know, the thing about Spark, and that's the thing I want to, for me personally, again, I can't talk for other channels and stuff. I'll tell you for me, when the Spark came to me, I was, you know, look, I don't want to ever say I was hoping for, or I had an agenda. I just, but there is sometimes you're as someone who creates content, you happen to know, or you get a sixth sense, I should say, like a news person for the story, right? You know, there's a good story. I was kind of thinking the Spark was hyped. I think a lot of channels, that's why there's a lot of, you know, clickbait, like, is the Spark the real deal? Because again, you kind of like see the hype train and then you go, okay, I'm going to be the one that debug it. And then I'll go viral because I'll be telling you guys. And I've always stuck with this philosophy. I always stuck with it, which is what I call the play it where it lands, kind of like in golf, right? Wherever the ball lands, that's where you play it, no adjusting. And when product comes to me, whether I want to like it or not, if it's good, I say it's good. If it's bad, I say it's bad. I just go with that. And even though deep down, if you only cared about views, there is a narrative that if you can grab, you can do well with, which is like everyone's saying the Spark's great. So if I tell everybody, haha, here's the real truth of the Spark, it's not very good, or it's hyped up, it's not the thing it should be. You know what I mean? You'll do even more successful. And some of the worst things, and that's definitely a video that comes to my mind if I thought about my top 5 videos like that, it would be, that's a video where it was really impressive. And the whole time you're like, oh, I'm just going to sound like everybody else preaching how great this thing is. And I have to admit, it was a really good thing. So I think that's why I get hyped. It gets hyped sometimes because it is good. It is good product, just like the Katana. They're good products. We're lucky to have stuff like that. Affordable sounding products that are affordable products that sound really good. You know, I mean, they're not ever going to be, you know, a vintage Plexi or, you know what I mean, a Fender Twin. There's just not going to be those iconic amplifiers. But man, for what, you know, dollar for dollar, they just do a great job. My niece hurt says, how loud is the Spark? My Spark is definitely loud enough for every practice situation. I have physically seen guitar players take them to band practice and use them. I mean, I guess if you set it up high enough and you turn it up loud enough, me personally, it depends on how tone driven you are. Some musicians literally are more utilitarian in the idea that like it's physically, they just need sound, you know what I mean? And at my point in my life, I like the tone. It inspires me. When I hit a note or chord, the more I love the way that sounds, the more I want to play even more. And when I don't love something the way it sounds, I still play, but I get more mechanical, like I'm just walking through, the chord changes or the performance. And to me, amps like that, they're, although they can pull something off, once you crank something to the point where it's past where I think it sounds good, sure, physically is doing the job, but it's just not the experience I'm looking for. I'm looking for that, like I said, I want every note or chord that I hit to be this thing that inspires me to do it again and again and again. And I can't wait, you know what I mean? And I can't wait for my sound to be highlighted. There you go. Okay. The next question that we got, next subject, I should say. Hold on a second as I jump around, please. Was from, I'm going to say Ron Hayes. I hope I'm saying it wrong. I hope I'm saying it right. R-A-H-N, Ron. Says, Phil, I scored a 1975 Gibson Ripper bass this week. Tell us your opinion on these Bill Lawrence era Gibson basses. I haven't heard you talk about Gibson basses much. Thanks for the show. I'm not a huge Gibson bass player. There has been, I have put my hands on maybe 2 or 3 Gibson basses. Obviously, that bass, the Les Paul style bass, the SG style bass. To me, as a bass player primarily, I kind of just found my, bass is different than guitar. Where guitar to me is this constant search for a sound or a tone or there's always a better thing around the horizon for guitar. For some reason, as a bass player, I don't have any of that instinctively in me. It's like I found the sound. For me, it's the Fender, like jazz bass. And then everything after that is like an aesthetic change. Like I love the way this bass looks, but I really just like the way the Fender jazz bass sounds and plays. And so Gibson and that stuff was not, and especially me, I play a lot of slap style bass, and sometimes those basses, like kind of like a Rickenbacker, they don't lend themselves to that technique. So, and different than when I play guitar. If I play guitar with other musicians, I play in a rhythm environment where I'm just holding down chords, playing sections of songs. Where bass, I've been more of a virtuoso type player. I've been doing more stuff, and therefore, the performance of my instrument is more important to me. So that's the way I kind of do things. But I like, like I said, I like the way the Gibsons look, and I like everything about them. Just like I said, plus Gibson just never been that big in the bass market. You know what I mean? I'd probably been playing bass, unlike guitar and stuff, where you play a Gibson probably within the first year or two of playing guitar. Very short after. If you don't play an actual Gibson, you play a Gibson style guitar like an Epiphone or some kind of. I'd probably been playing bass for 20 years before I physically picked up any kind of Gibson style basses. It just wasn't something you saw, not something I came across very often. They're very unique, which is why you have a very unique and cool instrument. A 75 Gibson Ripper bass is cool. So very cool and good find. Vimps69 says, hey, hope you're feeling better. For the McKnight Family Chicken Soup Fund. If you don't mind, I'm going to put that to the McKnight Family Hotel Fund. My wife will not tell me how much the hotel costs for the children. She said it doesn't matter, their safety mattered. I agree 100%, but I still asked and she wouldn't tell me, and I love that about her, by the way. I prefer not to know. I'm sure it was reasonable. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just glad everybody is fine. Preston says, I own one guitar with a humbucker. I don't have P90s, a semi-hollow body, or a Bigsby style trim. Okay. I fixed all of this with a Duesenberg. Okay. Star Player 3. Monday, new guitar day. So he just wanted to tell us that he got a cool Duesenberg guitar. And we're sharing that with you, Preston. Congratulations on your new awesome guitar. The hard thing for me during this, not lockdown, but obviously I was on lockdown. By the way, for you guys know, all of you that ordered pickups and stuff while I was out sick, even when we were feeling better, we couldn't ship. Everybody's been shipped now except for one set. We couldn't ship until we actually were cleared. You know what I mean? I couldn't touch anything. My wife couldn't touch anything either. So everybody, you can feel safe to know that we waited till everything was safe and sound. But the worst part of this was talking about how feeling so bad. I felt so bad during this experience. I must have received 6 guitars that I was anticipating. And every time when we come in, my wife's like, kind of like egging me on, like, do you want to go open the box and check it out? And I just felt so poorly. I was like, no. But so I have a bunch of new Guitar Day style videos to do. So I'm very excited about that. Matthew Perkins says, welcome back. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate that. Pete W says, hey, Phil, beginner here. I saw your video on FRFRs. Okay, so he's talking about the speaker cabinets. Is there something, maybe a Two Notes Torpedo CabM Plus, that can shape the electric signal so that it will sound good through the FR PA acoustic amp? Absolutely. In fact, what you're talking about is perfectly what you want. I think the CabM is one of the best products on the market. I would definitely, like I said, since I've been doing videos on YouTube, I would definitely put that product specifically as one of the top 10 products I've ever used when it comes to the question of what do you use that physically improves your workflow. Absolutely. When it improves your, the ability to record with, utilize in every way. Like I said, as you guys know, I did a video with the Aux, and of course the Captor X. But the CabM Plus, I think, is a fantastic product. I'll never probably get rid of mine. I say probably because, if they come out with another one, maybe, but, fantastic. And exactly for that, you can run, your guitar pedal board into it, and then into an FR cabinet. Absolutely. What it's going to do, so you guys understand, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, because he said he's a beginner. A lot of you might be beginners. An FR cabinet, for the lack of a better term, is basically taking a studio monitor and making that, a monitor for you, a one speaker kind of monitor. Takes your, it's a way for you to take something like, for instance, whether you take a pedal board or an amplifier, if you run into the CabM will simulate not only the speaker, it'll simulate the microphone, the room, and then maybe some basic effects. So this is important because, if you run that then into an amplifier or into another cabinet with an amplifier or combo, that is going to color the sound from what the CabM is doing. The FRFR is going to make that so that you're only hearing the simulated speaker and power section. I am not a huge I've said this before, I'm not a huge FRFR cabinet. I think it's kind of I caution everybody. I think there's definitely some really good channels out there if you really want to deep dive into FRFR cabinets. But I think if you just want the upfront dose that I can give you, the thing that's going to be easy to translate, is, in my experience, no FR cabinets have been great. And there's always a concession you have to make with every single one I've tried, no matter how expensive or inexpensive they are. So if somebody's going to flat out tell you, like, hey, you got to get a $1,000 one or a $2,000 one, then they get good, or this one's bad and this one's good. My experience is they all are lacking in something. There's just something not amazing about any of them. But I don't think necessarily that's a bad thing. I think they do a job. I personally just use the Mark, the DV Mark. Which is not a true FRFR cabinet, but it's kind of like that. It's a power cabinet. It's ultra light. It works great for me. And it just fit the bill for what I needed, which is exactly what you're talking about. I use my CabM for that. I'll plug into the CabM, and then I run the signal out from the CabM into that powered cabinet. And yeah, like Imre said, the head rush. I had the head rush. Again, I can say nothing bad about them. You can pick them up used. You can get deals on them. They sound good. Yeah, so High Desert said the Katana is a good FR. I agree. I use the Katana. I don't want to go down this road. I thought the head rush sounded a little better than the Katana as an FRFR, because I was actually thinking like, oh, I got the Katana, maybe I don't need this head rush, but I thought it sounded a little better. But again, all of them are going to be, in my opinion, if you're trying to find perfect, I think it feels like a fool's errand. I felt like I went down that road and I just felt like other than throwing money at the problem, there was nothing I was getting out of the situation. So, but they are very cool. And like I said, that's why I still use one, because it's just something nice about using that as a monitor for what you need. We have Normal Rocks says, just bought a Starshine Les Paul. Can't believe how good. I never heard of this. Starshine Les Paul says, I can't believe how good the body neck are. I want to learn tech setup. Any advice for choosing hardware like bridges, tuning machines? Will an ABR one bridge fit an import? Again, I'm not familiar with your exact guitar for bridges and stuff. I mean, obviously an ABR1 might be a good fit. What I would definitely think about is, I've said this before, let's just stick with the easy part. I recommend when upgrading a guitar, inexpensive guitar, expensive guitar, whatever your brand guitar, whatever your poison, I definitely would say, if you, first of all, try to solve a problem. You know the saying, don't fix it if it's not broken. There's so many times that I see this, and it's very common. And I find, again, it's your money, but you know, let's be smart with our money if we can. I find like somebody's like, oh, I got a guitar and I'm upgrading these 5 things, and I go, well, why? And they go, oh, because those 5 things are horrible on the guitar. And you can tell, like, that's the whole, remember, the whole know your gear philosophy was try things, play it, absorb it, you know, find the flaw, find the shortcoming of it. You know what I mean? It's, you know, it's important to, what do you call it? To figure out exactly what it is that's lacking, that you feel like you're missing out on before you start just spending money. And in that experience, what I will tell you is, if you want to fix up a guitar like that, I would definitely think of this way: take the problems and write them down if you want to, or just mentally earmark them right now. Tuning stability is a problem. So if the guitar is having tuning stability, I will tell you right now, in order of tuning stability problems, the nut is your first problem. You make sure that's right, because if the nut's not right, nothing's going to be right when it comes to tuning stability. Then after that, maybe look at those tuning keys. Maybe whether you want to go with locking keys, because again, it's faster restrings, or just because the keys have a horrible gear ratio and they feel sloppy, or maybe they're not, again, you might have defective unit that might not be holding tune. And then after that, then maybe look at the bridge, although, and you know, and set the intonation stuff. Then that's how you address the tuning stability issue. The second thing you might want to look at then after that is fit and finish, you know, make sure the frets are right. Like I said, but each time, make sure you're solving a problem, because there is a feeling that I've experienced, and I think a lot of us, especially watching right now, have experienced, which is, you know, you just immediately fix something on a guitar. You don't know why. It's like, I get a guitar, the guitar's $300, and you think, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this new components on them. And then a week later, maybe the guitar sounds horrible, or maybe you have electronics issue, or maybe you have some other issue with the guitar, and now you have to invest in that issue. You know what I mean? So again, just try to find what's wrong with the guitar, or find out what's lacking in the instrument for you. You know, spend some time with the instrument. I know it's tough, because, you know, especially when you get a new instrument and you want to fix it up or you want to mod it up. I find that's one of the things you have to be most cautious with. I try to spend 1 week with an instrument minimum before I allow any upgrades, even if that upgrade is something as silly as changing out the pick guard, you know what I mean, or something cosmetic that I'm just doing for cosmetic purposes. I still wait 1 week. I just find that's again, it's a good thing to do, because not only, one, it helps you, be smarter with what you're spending, but also the second thing that's probably important to understand is it helps you realize what it is you like and dislike about the guitar. And I learned this, by the way, and I want to share this with you guys. I learned this because so many times when doing repair, someone would bring me an instrument going, okay, this got to me yesterday, and they would hand me the guitar and then maybe a bag of parts, and they go, I want you to fix this for me. And I would do that to the guitar. And I remember thinking so many times going, I don't know if there's any difference in this guitar, and I'd hand it to the person, and the person would get it back. And 9 out of 10 times they were super happy. In fact, it was the easiest work I could ever do, because the expectation was they didn't really know the guitar. They didn't know how it sounded. They spent less time with it than I did. They played it for the 10 minutes. They got it out of the box, and then they brought it to the shop. And a lot of times, you know, they'd get it back and they go, well, Phil, you're a master. You did it. It sounds and plays great. But deep down, I knew like nothing had really changed. And And that's why, like I said, I try to curtail the advice I give here on the channel to those experiences and maybe share them with you. Like I said, to me, some of the hardest modifications I've ever done for any customer ever, hands down, has always been, you know, you can tell they're intimately intertwined with their instrument. They've been playing it for years, you know, months. They know the way it sounds. They know the way it feels. They know everything about it. When you make adjustments and they get it back and they're like, they can just immediately tell, like, I don't know, it's different now, Phil. What did you know, I mean, sometimes you can make a mistake and change something, you know, just a little something, maybe the pickup height, something like that. And I've had people get the instrument back and going, hey, Phil, thank you, but it doesn't feel right or it doesn't sound right. And then I'd go through my sheet and I go, oh, you know what? Let me adjust something. And I adjust it and they go, okay, yeah, it's better now. And that's what you're looking for, is this, you know, like I said, try to bond with your products or your instruments before you start changing them. It's just a suggestion. So, sorry, excuse me. Hoosier said, and if you just watch YouTube, you can do the mod yourself. Of course. Saving money is obviously a huge thing you can do. Labor cost is a big part of this if you can do the mod yourself, especially as I've preached many times over and over again, which is that basically modification aftermarket components now are so interactive, are so interchangeable now without modifications. It's getting less and less to need a guitar tech to do those basic changes. Other than, you know, you just don't want to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Like I've said, I don't want to wash my car. I take it in to have it washed. Some people would, you know, some people wash my neighbors sometimes wash their car in front of the house, you know. I can wash my car, I just don't want to. So sometimes you just don't want to do the work. Fuzz Off, nice, says, glad you're feeling better. Have you seen Jim Lil's YouTube video on where does tone come from electric guitar player yet? Very interesting. I have not seen it again. Although I would imagine, again, I don't want to kind of speak about something I'm not versed in. I don't know the video, and I'm not going to pull it up and watch it right now. I don't have the time, unfortunately, on a live show. What I will tell you is that whenever I hear titles like the truth about tone, you know what I mean, or where tone comes from, it's nothing about any of those videos other than I just always I have a philosophy like a lot of people, and my philosophy about tone is that there are thousands, if not millions, of components that make up a sound. I've said this before. It's just, again, my belief system. I believe the tone of your guitar, electric instrument, is not a guitar. It's not a pickup. It's not a string. It's not a type of wood. It's not paint. It's not fret wire. It's not an output jack. It's not electronics. It's not the guitar cable. It's not the speaker. It's not the amplifier. It's not the tubes. It's all of those things combined make a sound. And I find that there's always this, and again, I want to be very clear, my channel has never been a tone quest channel. I think there's some fantastic channels. One of my favorite channels, I think, for tone questing is like Rhett Shaw. I like his channel. I find that when I watch his videos, he talks about this is how you get the tone. For instance, like the Andertons guys will be like, how to get John Mayer's tone for $600. If you notice, I've had you guys over the years, like, you should do a video where you say how to get to somebody's tone. And if you notice, I'm not really a tone chaser as I am as just into, gear and music and like talking about it and showing it. It's not necessarily like I'm not trying to quantifiably say like, oh yes, you know what I mean? This tube is the tone, or this is the tone. This is the holy grail of sound for anything. Because here's why. The problem with that for me is, one, again, my belief system is that I believe that there's a million things, and I'm not even exaggerating, that make a tone, a sound, an overall sound. But more importantly for me, I find that my personal gauge of what is good, bad, tone, what is trebly or bassy, what is, whatever it is, changes all the time. I change all the time. Mentally, I just like, sometimes I'm into this sound, I'm into this sound. And for everybody who tells me like, there's a great video, I'll talk about a video I did see. There's a great video years ago where a YouTube channel was trying to debunk, or not trying, but when I say that is the context of the video, they're trying to debunk tone wood. And they were like, I think it's was it a Segborn? I think it was Segborn, right? Didn't he put a guitar on a fence post? Right? Didn't he put strings and a pickup and everything on a fence post, and he played a fence post, right? Somebody probably understand the video. It's a couple years old now. I remember watching the video, and I love video like that. Obviously, I think that's great entertainment and a great conversation to have. Like, hey, can you play guitar off a fence post? And I remember what I liked about that video was I remember seeing guitar players like Rick Nielsen, stuff like that. Players would play odd shaped guitars, you know what I mean? Guitars shaped like something else, and all kinds of guitars. And they play them on stage, and you go, like, does that sound like a Les Paul? Does that sound like a Strat? It's such a crazy looking, goofy guitar. Who am I thinking of? Bob Seger, didn't he play a guitar? I think he did. He had a guitar that literally is a baseball bat, right? Like he has a baseball bat that's a guitar, and you think, like, what's the tone of that? And ultimately what I realized is, again, that's the problem. When somebody says, oh, I can get a tone, you know what I mean? Well, of course, you know what I mean? The variances of what you're, again, I like on my tone chasing pod clip I did the other day. I think when we talk about these things, at some point, it depends on what matters to each individual person, these little small nuances. John Fogerty, thank you. It was John Fogerty that did the baseball bat guitar. But like I said, I haven't seen the video. I'll definitely look for it tonight and watch it this weekend. I'm always interested to hear somebody's perspective. But like I said, I'm not really a tone chaser that way. I'm not like trying to quantifiably say, this is where tone comes from, and this is the, like I said, I physically make pickups. I mean, I could just, I could literally take a pickup and wind it slightly different, and do different things and get different sounds. There's a video, I put a link in, Michael Nielsen from Big Hairy Guitars did a pickup shootout where he just plugged in pickups and did shootout of pickups. I put a link to it because it was one of the only YouTube videos I got to watch when I was sick. And I really enjoyed it. And like I said, this is an odd thing. It's in my self-interest to tell you guys, oh, the sound of a guitar is all in the pickup. It's all in the electronics. And I've said this before, so I try to keep consistent with what I've said. Obviously, 248 episodes of the podcast, I've been pretty consistent with what I feel, which is this. I think it's easy when it comes to tone to assign, I think logically, percentages of how much of, like, let's just say bass response or treble response. Where is it coming from? And I honestly believe this. Again, everybody can believe different things. Somebody says mahogany is bassier than ash. I would say, yeah, but before I would worry about that, let's just say this pickup is going to have a bassier response than this pickup. And I can, that's going to be the bigger thing. Like I said, I think it's a million things that make up the different sounds of an instrument, but there are definitely things that have a huge factor. To me, a speaker can be a huge factor. The amplifier can be a huge factor of the sound. The type of pickups, the electronics, all of those things matter. But again, I'm not looking I guess that's where I'm trying to go with this. I'm not looking for that quantifiable, like everything is this. To me, I'm okay with the world being a little unknown. I'm okay with not knowing exactly what it is. What I will tell you is the best advice I ever got from anybody was, believe it or not, was a sales rep of all people who once said, like if anyone can make a perfect guitar, then that's all we would sell all day. You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? So again, and I love this, by the way. I love chasing the tone and talking about this stuff. So, but thank you for the suggestion for the video to check out. I will definitely check it out. Matthew says, hey, Phil, you should have a word with Ryan at 60 Cycle Hum. Okay. They're trying to snatch your streamline. I don't know what streamline is. I don't think Ryan is trying to snatch anything. But I don't know what streamline is. I can tell you this. I am friends with Ryan at 60 Cycle Hum. And Ryan, first of all, and again, I don't know what it is you're referencing, but I will tell you this, what I know about Ryan as a person, because I've had conversation. Well, think of this. I spent an hour or so interacting with him right before I got sick that week. Ryan is sense of humor is not only amazing, he's a hilarious guy, and especially in person, you know what I mean? He translates well to video. I think that you get a sense of his personality in video. I think that's a good capture of his personality, but I think he's obviously even more exciting in person. Yeah, if there's very few channels that I would be ever concerned with, 60 Cycle Hum is not anything I would be worried about snatching anything. Like I said, I've bounced as many ideas off him and vice versa. So, but thank you, Matthew. I appreciate where this comes from. It always comes from like some kind, I'm sure, some kind of like, hey, I want to protect this channel from, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of friends, there's a lot of channels out there that I'm good friends with. Marty Schwartz, Ryan 60 Cycle Hum, Dovey Doss, China Guitar Skeptic. I mean, these people are great friends, on co-worker type friends, like we, recognize each other and stuff. So I have no fear of those guys, especially, like I said, Ryan, good guy. Spencer says, I have been thinking about getting either a Sustainiac, 12 string, a baritone, a semi-hollow. Any recommendations? I don't have any of those, and I am in a creative rut. This is the important thing that you're saying, the creative rut. Glad to see you're feeling better. Thank you so much for the well wishes. Spencer, I'm so glad you said that you're in a creative rut, because that's what I kind of was reading into this. I've gone down this road of, one, I need every kind of guitar. You know what I mean? I need a 12 string. I need a baritone. I need a 7 string. I need a semi-hollow. I need a hollow body. I need a telly. I need a Gretsch. I found that although I think there's nothing wrong with collecting guitars, and finding things, I find that for me personally, again, different players, different solutions for them. But one of the things that I found for me was, I used to think like if I would get a different style guitar, it would motivate me in a different way. And then what I found was that it's really intuitive for a musician, especially one that's not very new. You know what I mean? You're not in the beginner level playing, to instinctively take any guitar and just make it feel and sound the way you want it to be, right? So, although I think a type of guitar can give you inspiration, right? Playing a different style of guitar for sure. And I definitely think that a different pedal can do that. A different piece of gear sure can inspire you. There's a great video of John Mayer talking about how he bought a pedal and he wrote an entire song. And that song paid him crap tons of royalties and became a hit. And it was all because he bought this pedal. It's a great video. If I find it, I'll link it when I index the show. What I find is that, that's great, but I would actually caution maybe not necessarily need to buy a guitar to get inspiration. I find the inspiration mostly comes from interaction. If you interact with other musicians, that's where inspiration comes from. Being around someone better than yourself is huge. And I understand sometimes you can't interact with other musicians for all kinds of reasons. And when you can't do that, that's what's great about YouTube. There's tons of content out there where you can watch, maybe learn a new song more so than buy a new style guitar. And the reason is not only is it, is it less expensive? And again, I'm not trying to save you money. It's not the goal of this answer. It's more of this is what I learned. Before I'd get a 12-string guitar, I would just learn a 12-string song that you like on 6-string. And maybe try to simulate that 12-string effect. Maybe if you have a multiprocessor, you can get in there and do stuff. This is what I found. That's where the inspiration comes from. And here's why. With the inspiration, then you buy the guitar. Does that make sense? That's how you answer that question without just a suggestion. Although I feel like, I think my suggestion will have value to you. I really feel like, learn a song, learn a great baritone song and play it on your guitar. Down tune your guitar. Let it play like crap. Take your 10-gauge strings and down tune them down to B to B, B to B, and let them flop and be horrible sounding, but play the song. And then in that, there's where inspiration comes from. Is that's what I found. And the reason is, especially if you watch musicians in the studio, professionals, beautiful musicians that you were inspired by. If you watch a lot of studio stuff now, especially now on YouTube, you see exactly that. They're never like, hey, I'm not inspired. Hey, maybe I need to get a bridge, whammy bar type guitar. And with the whammy bar, I'll be inspired. It's really like they're playing and there's a limitation and they're thinking, oh, I need this kind of guitar for a sound. A perfect example of that is like, they're like, none of the sounds or none of the emotional tones that we're creating are matching what we're trying to do. Let's get a different instrument or different amplifier. It's never, hey, if I get a new amp, I'll get inspired. I don't find that's how it works. I think that's instinctively the first thing that comes to your mind. Buy a piece of gear and you'll be inspired to make more music. But I find that you got to do it backwards. Make music, and then that inspires you to buy another piece of gear and try it my way. You know what's great about my way? It's free. You don't have to spend anything. And within a short period of time, within 24 hours, if you need to buy a guitar, if you need to get it out of your system, you need to make some, what do they call it, retail therapy, now you'll feel good about the purchase. Again, I try to say everything with a little bit of experience. I've had a ton of guitars over the years and basses where, again, you know what I mean? I did exactly what you said. I purchased it thinking, oh, I'm gonna buy a fretless bass and then I'll play more fretless and that'll inspire me to play fretless. And I bought a fretless and I never played any fretless work ever. And then I learned that for some reason now, in fact, if somebody was to ask me to play something on some song of theirs and want me to play fretless, I actually use a short scale bass and vibrato to get fretless. And that's how I'll mimic a fretless sound. And it'll come, and for recording purposes, it'll sound very accurate, and it has nothing to do with, that's where I got my inspiration. How do I make this sound with the instrument I want to play? So I think hopefully that's some good advice. If not, like I said, just make a purchase and call it a day. Somebody says buy guitar lessons. Buying guitar lessons works too. Again, lessons, I love lessons, and I don't think, I could preach lessons any more than I normally do. I love the idea of lessons. I think there's no downfall of the lessons. However, sometimes, again, we're talking about inspiration, and lessons can be inspiring, but there's factors in that. Did you get the right teacher? Is it the right thing? Is it the right moment for you? Again, inspiration. I find inspiration comes from exactly that, other musicians. And that teacher, that lesson teacher can be the inspiration. But I find, when in a rut, try to find a new style of music. It's huge. It's never too late to discover a new to you style of music, right? One of the things I like about getting older is the older I get, the older the music I start listening to. Not what everybody says, though. Everybody who tells you, like, as you get older, you stop listening to new music and you only listen to music from when you're, your teenage years or whatever. That's not the case with me at all. The older I get, the more I start listening to music that's before my time. The more I start listening, it's almost like I go deeper back in catalogs, out of almost like exactly that, the inspiration of it. Like, wow, it sounds so cool. I never thought of listening to this style of music that inspired a style of music I've listened to for years. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. I'm just looking at some of the comments you guys are talking about. Dougal Dog says, hey, Phil, good day. Why? He wants to know why the PRS SE Starla doesn't get any respect. I'm considering one. Tell me what's wrong with it. Nothing's wrong with the SE Starla. To me, the Starla and the Mira are in the same vein of instruments. They started out as core instruments. They were the same thing. I think both were designed by Joe Nags. That's my understanding. I'm a huge Starla pickup fan. That's what's in the Vela is one of the pickups is the Starla pickup. I think the Starla pickup is a fantastic sounding pickup. The Starla for me, I don't know why I now own one or I've never owned one. it's definitely an instrument that I gravitate towards. Like I said, it's a very basic PRS. That's again my love of PRS is in the more basic models of PRS. I love the fit and finish of PRS. I love that's what they do, but I'm just never been a whole like, look at this. It's this exotic wood that came from, you know, this one tree that was friends with another tree once, whatever it is that gets people excited. That's not what it does it for me. Right now, you know, it always kind of changes, but right now, definitely by far my favorite PRS is my Vela. That's the guitar I've been playing the absolute most. The semi-hollow. I went back and forth with the solid body and semi-hollow, and I ended up, you know, back on the semi-hollow, but I just love the instrument. It's the most not PRS sounding PRS I've ever played. I wouldn't. It feels kind of more like a Dane Electro meets a Gretsch meets a something else. And so the Starla is again another interesting guitar that I think is cool. I love those kind of non-PRS guitars. Dirt Racer X says, "Hey, what is your favorite non-Floyd Rose tremolo?" Well, I like the way tremolos feel. They feel different. To me, the Bigsby and the Floyd are the same. They're kind of spongy. There's a fantastic video. I will try and find it and link it between Tim Pierce and Pete Thorne talking about this subject. And the first time I ever met Pete Thorne and the first time I ever met Tim Pierce, the first thing I told him was, that was the best video you guys ever did. And both of them reacted the same way, which is like, really? Like they never thought of that video as being so and I said, no, your discussion was perfect about how bridges feel different. You know what I mean? A Strat tremolo feels so much different to me than a Bigsby. Bigsby's so much different than, let's say, the Floyd, which I think they're closer in line with, which was different than, you know, I'm trying to think of another one, like the Godin bridge, right? They're all kind of 2-point tremolo, 6-point tremolo. They're all different. They have a different feel to them. Me, I like, for me, I like the Floyd Rose feel. It's one of my favorite. After that's probably the Bigsby. Again, I like to describe that feeling of the Floyd Rose and the Bigsby as a big Cadillac on the road, right? Everything feels soft and smooth. As you hit a dip, everything feels like, you know what I mean? Everything feels like, you know, I know you can dive bomb and go crazy with the Floyd, but to me, what I like about it is how subtle it is. It's why Pete Thorne, if you notice uses a Floyd Rose, I think it's called a Junior, where it doesn't have the locking nut, and it's not all about dive bombing. It's just the feel of the Floyd. And Kaler's, Stout Coffee says Kaler's. Kaler's another bridge. Again, totally different feel. They feel different. The Vega trim, which I've done a bunch of videos on, I think is one of my favorite things about it, is it has that exact same feel. It feels very like a Floyd Rose, very like a Bigsby. I would definitely say my favorite feeling bridge, if I feel, is definitely the Floyd. Then and I don't want to say in order. I'll just, because it doesn't really matter to me. I'd say the Vega trim, the Bigsby, and the Floyd are the three that I just love the way they feel. They don't feel as stiff. They feel softer, and I like that. The reason is because, again, it's a personality thing. I'm a reactive personality. In other words, you know, if you, I've said this before, like bass playing is a perfect example of this for me. If you plug me into a big bass amp with lots of low end, when I'm playing in the band, I tend to play more, you know, solid notes, you know, hold down let the boom of the bass carry the music. Where if you put me with a smaller bass amp and I don't have as much low end response, I'll play a little faster, I'll fill the sound up, F-I-L-L, fill the sound up with more notes. And now all of a sudden I tend to, on the bass, more literally fills on the bass. Versus boom, boom, doom, boom. Like I said, if you, without that fullness of sound, my style changes. If you give me a guitar, a thinner neck makes me play faster. I start playing, like all of a sudden I start playing the scales a little faster and I kind of attack everything a little harder. I kind of feel like I not so much have to shred, but kind of more like that. Where if you give me a bigger neck, I tend to slow down and calm down. Again, I kind of react to that, whether it's a physical touch thing or audible through my ears. I react to that stuff. Bridges are exactly like that. You know what I mean? To me, if you give me a bridge that's just really smooth and soft, I find that when I play and I use tremolo, I use exactly that. It's about tremolo for me. It's about this. It's almost like how I would use a pedal. I just want it soft and and I love the way it sounds and feels. So yeah, so that's my favorite type of bridges are the ones that are soft and something that I can. To me, a perfect world is I can use my pinky to move the bridge up and down and bend the pitch, and control it. And that's why I also have so many hardtail guitars, because it's a conscious thing for me. When I play like the Gibson SG, when I play a guitar without a tremolo, and I should probably include this in one of the videos one day, because there's tons of outtakes of me doing this. There are crap tons, because I make so many videos now. There are crap tons of videos with me playing a guitar hardtail, and in the middle of a video, like I'm mentally spacing what guitar I have, you'll see me reach for the tremolo to make some kind of, I'll hit a chord and I'm not there, and then I go back to playing. And a lot of times I edit that out because it's kind of goofy, you know what I mean? It just looks at me like, what is he doing? No reference of it, but it's exactly that. And again, it changes my style. Again, I'll play a little different. Like I said, when I play guitar, if somebody asks me to come jam with them, like I said, I'll grab my PRS Mira, a guitar like that. For some reason, I just, no tremolo, no frills, no nothing. It just makes me play, I want to say, it makes me play, trying to think of a perfect way, subdued. You know what I mean? Again, it just makes me part of the band, part of the experience. I'm not trying to showboat or anything. Not that that's something I would do anyways. Okay, so we have the next question comes from Jeff, who says, "Hey Phil, I love the show. You mentioned about having 2 amps." Okay, yeah. I remember we talked about this. So in case you get tired of one, could switch out to another amp. Absolutely. My question is, if one amp is a Boss Katana, could the other be digital, say like a Tonemaster Deluxe Reverb? Sure. I would love, me personally, I would love if the Katana sounded like the Tonemaster Deluxe Reverb. One of my things I was very upfront with when I did the Tonemaster video was that it was a cost issue. And not everything you review has something that maybe isn't perfect, right? Maybe I love everything about it but one thing. In the Tonemaster series amp, the only really critique, like I said, I talked about 10 reasons why you don't want to buy it or 10 reasons not to. That's a video for you guys. I wrote down exactly like, okay, I was thinking systematically, because it is an expensive purchase and I know a lot of you won't be able to put your hands on it. I wanted to put some thought into the video of here's reasons why I would, buy it. Here's reason why I wouldn't buy it. Help you make a decision to purchase it, since I took my hard-earned money and bought it from a Guitar Center to make that video. That's what I was hoping to. That's the best thing as a YouTube review channel I could do for anybody, is help them not make the decision, but help you save some money. Because that's what I watch other channels for. Same reason. I'm trying to save myself some money. And that being said, as much as I would love, because I've AB'd the Katana to the Tonemaster, I'd love to be able to tell you like, oh man, you can get the Tonemaster, the Katana sound just like the Tonemaster. They are different sounding. The Tonemaster has its own thing, and it's a beautiful sounding thing. No, I don't think there's anything wrong. That would be a great combination of amps, of 2 amps. Like I said, fantastic, especially if you can get a Tonemaster on a deal. As I jump, hold on a second. Okay, Chad says, how do you intonate a guitar differently for D standard than maybe E standard? So what you're talking about is you want to set the guitar up. You want to set the guitar tuned one step full down. When you say D standard, what I take from that, I just want to make sure we're on the same page, is not that you're dropping the E to D, you're dropping all of the 6 notes down one full pitch, right? You would intonate it the same way. That's exactly how you do it. Intonating, I have a video on how to intonate. It works the same way. You would find that same method. It doesn't matter what you're tuning to. You would basically tune the instrument, to the correct pitch you want it to be, which would be D to D, and then you would set the intonation correctly, and that's it. My guess, and again, I can only do a guess because it's again, I'm not touching every guitar in every situation. What I would expect to happen is if you were to take a guitar, whether it be a Strat or Les Paul, and down tune all 6 strings one full step, what I would expect to happen with the intonation is the saddles would have to be adjusted. Probably, see, I'm guessing. I want to say back a little bit because you want to extend the scale to get more tension, but it could go the other way too. Because again, I'm doing off memory. It's not something I'm consciously thinking of. If you gave me an instrument right now and said, "Hey, I want it intonated from D to D," for D to D tuning, I just would exactly what I just told you. I would tune it up. And then it depends if it was floating bridge or not, because you have to deal with that. But if it was just a hardtail bridge, I would tune it up and then set the intonation. Especially sometimes if you're going to do that, you might want to increase the gauge of strings 1 gauge. So if your 9s go to 10s, 10s go to 11s, that would be my advice if you're going to do that. But there you go. Also keep in mind, in some lucky cases, whether you change strings or not, remember, doesn't mean the intonation goes out. Sometimes I've seen it. Some guitars just intonate perfectly. In other words, what I mean by that is you're standard, you drop all the strings 1 full step, and then you check the intonation, it's dead on. It happens. It's my experience is that it's not all of them always go out. In fact, G is usually one that will go out the first and the most. So that'd be, like I said, you'll adjust a few saddles and that's it. Michael says, hey, do you have any experience or thoughts on guitar simulators? Devices or software that allow the guitar to sound like another guitar. I have gone down that road as I, had delusions of grandeur. For me, it did not work out. I'll tell you what worked out for me. So what I tried to do was buy like the G Synth or any of the Roland Synth units. And I thought, I'm going to make my guitar sound like a piano. I'm going to make my guitar sound like a trumpet. And there's more to it, man. There's a technique to that. So you have to be ready. What I wasn't was ready. I thought I made the purchase and that the purchase enough would solve the problem. Right? I have a thing and now it sounds like a piano. And what it sounded like was crappy keyboard music. Everything I did was crappy keyboard music because again, it's still the player behind the sound. You know what I mean? You still have to have the sound. Definitely, if you go down that road, be prepared to learn, to teach yourself or to take lessons on how to play those other style instruments. Because if you think you're just going to play a scale, it's going to sound exactly like, you might as well just get a crappy Costco. I don't want to say Costco, but crappy keyboard, just play crappy keyboard. It's going to sound just as horrible as on the guitar if you don't put any time behind it. What I will tell you, for me personally, if you guys are looking for suggestions, before I would go synth again, I would never go synth again, but before I go synth again, I would definitely look at the pedals that made by Electro Harmonics, the C, what are they? Keynote, C note, keynote, B note, those pedals that sound like organs and stuff like that. Very cool pedals. I have one of those and I find that, man, it sounds so good and fraction of the expense. And again, it let me put more energy in playing, you know what I mean? Playing the music versus just having the tones, because I learned the hard way the tones are horrible. And if you think about it for a second, it actually makes tons of sense. Like, you wouldn't just buy if you were a blues player, you wouldn't buy a metal pedal and go, oh, now I can play metal because I have lots of distortion, right? You still have to learn the technique. And that's the problem, is that if you buy a synth, is that you need to learn the techniques, because otherwise, like I said, you play even piano chords, they're just, they're different. They're different than guitar chords. You think you're going to play some, like, that's what I thought. I just play some open chords and get piano tones. It just sounded so one-dimensionally generic that it just didn't appeal to me. But everybody's, everybody's mileage will vary. BK says, thank goodness it's Friday, probably repeated question. Okay. Says, sorry, but Godin A6 versus Fender Acoustasonic for acoustic stuff, jazzy, maybe looping. I still have not physically put my hands playing a Fender Acoustasonic, but I am a huge fan of the Godin A6, and I have seen nothing on YouTube that has made me value the Fender Acoustasonic series more than the Godin A6, even the made in Mexico, which the price comes down to $1,200. And the Godin A6 have traveled up. Now they're in the $1,200 range, so they're very comparable. But I think the Godin A6 is a very quality instrument. And
I have no problem recommending that instrument to anybody that's looking for exactly what you're looking for. If you're looking for an instrument like that, some kind of hybrid acoustic thing. I like my Godin A6 more than my Taylor T5. And I would imagine, I can't imagine the Fender Acoustasonic being much different than that. And overall, like, when you translate the $2,000 price point to what it is, again, they made Mexico one, but I like the Godin A6. The only difference to me would be, I'm sure there's features in the Acoustasonic series and maybe aesthetics, but like I said, I love the Godin A6. I have tons of friends that own them. I've owned them. They are fantastic by any means. James Dean Anderson says, you look a lot better. Wait more. Oh, we already did that one. I just wanted to repeat that. Fox and the Hound says, thoughts on the... Oh, we already did. We already talked about that too. And now I'm jumping around. T-sized. I think that means tall. T-sized says, is the Boss Katana Mark II 101 combo still the best budget-friendly combo amp? I have a 100 watt 83 Laney Pro Tube 412. I don't feel like moving that, so the combo amp would help. I don't gig. Oh, sure, because it doesn't matter if you gig or not. Heavy amps are heavy amps. I look, to me, the Katana stuff is very good. It's exactly what we've talked about when we talk about amps that are functionally good. Like I said, I want to say a Toyota Camry. It's a quality car. You know what I mean? Gets good gas mileage. That's the Katana. You can run it as pedals. I'm still a big part of Katana for me has been pedals. I like to put pedals in front of the Katana. I'm not a big fan of any of the Katana tones. When I say that, I mean nothing in it goes like, wow, man, you can't beat that sound. Everything is like, that sounds pretty good, or yeah, that's usable, or oh, I like that, fine. But I have plugged my pedals in the Katana and wanted for nothing for hours and played. And so, yeah, if you're looking for a good platform amp, I think Katana is great, which is why I want to do some videos of other stuff. Maybe there's some other things out there, but Katana is still a good, safe suggestion. Rock Daddy says, bridge pickup is an EVH Frankenstein or a Wolfgang. What? I don't know if that's a question. He says, but that is his question. He says, bridge pickup. He wants me to tell him which one to suggest, the EVH Frankenstein or the Wolfgang. I prefer the Wolfgang pickup to the Frankenstein pickup. Both are fantastic pickups, but I prefer the Wolfgangs. But keep in mind, part of my suggestions like that is because the Frankenstein pickup is really good, but it's essentially a PAF style pickup. And I like that pickup, but there's a lot of other PAF style pickups I like as much, or if not more. And the Wolfgang pickups are really good pickups. I really like them. Wolfgang pickups, to me, one of the things they're really great for, if you haven't tried them, is sometimes a lot of players will say this is a very common thing to say, is they like the way their Ibanez plays, but they don't like the way Ibanez sounds, especially the RG basswood style guitars. Man, I find Wolfgang pickups really bring to life the Ibanez guitars, and I'll put a lot of my Wolfgang pickups in my Ibanez RG style guitars. I find that it really, for whatever I find lacking in those instruments, those pickups really bring it to life. So that's what I would suggest that for. Grumpy Mike Guitar says, hey, Phil. He says, hey. He goes, hope you and the lovely Mrs. McKnight are feeling better. Any thoughts on the new Fender release? Cheers. I saw the Fender new release briefly as I skimmed over stuff. And, I have to get adjusted to a couple things. First of all, it was one of those things, again, they're talking about April, May releases. And again, I'm like, okay, I'm skeptical in this market, in this supply chain world. Anybody who's telling me stuff about months out from the future, if it doesn't ship today, then I'm like, I don't even know if it's going to be real for a while. Because again, I think right now, if you want my attention as a consumer, which means my money, show me stuff that like the PRS SC Silver Sky. You know what I mean? Like we really, I did a video, like a lot of channels, and then it's like, hey, you could actually get one. I know they sold out, but they were there. You know what I mean? So a little skeptical of anybody's like, hey, we're coming out in 5 months with this or 2 months from this. Because again, it makes me kind of like nervous. Like, well, in the last 2 years, how many times everything's been like, it's coming out in 2 months and then it's been 2 years. You guys, I might be more jaded than you. Keep in mind right now, I have 5, no exaggeration, 5 videos that are done that I cannot release because the company said, oh, push it back. I have a company just pushed me back from January 1st, the video was supposed to come out. Then they told me February 1st. Now they're telling me March 1st because they don't have a supply. They don't want the video out. They sent me the product, I did the video, but they don't have, any. So I would imagine a bunch of channels got these things, but there's no product. And this is becoming more and more common where companies flat out send you an email saying, hey, don't hold off, don't show, don't talk. PRS example, look at all the stuff that PRS launched last month. And even I have their new 2408 S2 right here to my right that I'll be doing a video of talking about that. But there was another product launch of PRS that I was told about, that I was very excited about. And then there's no mention of it right now because obviously it got pushed back. And it's a supply chain issue. And I can tell because it's a product line that's not being made in Maryland. It's made external, so you could tell they're waiting. So with that being all said with the Fender thing, that's where I was like, I skimmed over it. And the second part is, remember, like a lot of you, I'm still adjusting to inflation and inflation. This is a lot of inflation to happen to a lot of us at a very short amount of time. And so you have to double take in your head constantly with this, like, is that what that goes for now? Is Squiers now a $500-$600 thing? It's absolutely Fender especially, they're the marketing genius when it comes to stacking products and lines. You know what I mean? Like I said, I was a Fender dealer for 12 years. Okay. So Fender has always been very successful at creating a pricing structure that makes it to where every single dollar point, there's a customer. Of course, every company's good at this too, but I mean, Fender, of course, has always been very, very good at, like, if you got $199, they got a guitar. If you got $299, they got a guitar. If you got $319, they got a guitar. If you got $379, they got a guitar. $399, $419, $449, right? There's a Fender guitar. There is no, in sales, they call it the objection. If your objection is price, Fender's got a price for every single objection. I don't want to spend more than $419.18. They're like, we have a guitar literally at that price point. There is no spot missing in this pricing structure, whether you go from the Squier to the Fender line and back down again. And so that being said, where I used to be very, very recently, even in the last couple of years, made in Mexico was this price point. Now I got to get used to the made in Indonesia Squier price point as being that. And it's still a little bit of a shell shock to me. You know what I mean? I'm not properly ready for it. And I think a lot of us are, because here's why. A lot of you are new players watching the podcast and listening to it. Some of you guys are veteran players for sure, like, been around the block a few times. And it's a very interesting thing when inflation hits the music industry like this, which is done many times. It's not the first time and it won't be the last time. You know what I mean? The only thing that's consistent is death and taxes and price increases. That all being said, it's always tough on a consumer when perceptionally I just bought, a high-end instrument at a price point, and then within a year later, that same price point is now an entry-level instrument. You're like, that's crazy. You know what I mean? That feeling to me, I'll tell you, the first time I saw made in Mexico instruments hitting what I at that moment was considering used American-made price instruments. In other words, like, I remember, like, just recently within the last few years, like, I can get a made in USA Strat for $700, no problem, right? That was like a no problem. We're not talking 2004. We're barely talking 2014. You could find a USA Strat for about $700. Not even trying very hard. You'd have to look, but they were there. And then I feel like in no time at all, I was like, $700, that's a made in Mexico Strat. New, of course, but like, what? Why would I buy that when I could buy a used USA Strat for, oh crap, $1,000? You know what I mean? So that's my reaction to the new Fender Squier lineup. I'll definitely be interested in checking it out. Again, like I said, if you guys are interested in me having those on the channels, just like anything else, I'll buy them and put them on the channel. That's what the Patreon does. The Patreon services, like I said, I stockpile Patreon funds over time, and then I buy a bunch of guitars, and then we sell them. I have a bunch of stuff to sell that will be churning for gear. My Dean Zielinski guitar video will be out this week, if not by Monday. Very interesting instrument. I hope the video does well because it is really an interesting it was interesting for me to go through the process. But again, that was 100% your guys' suggestion. They were a company that reached out, but just didn't connect and didn't send anything out to the channel. And you guys had mentioned enough times, kind of like the, what is it? What's the other one we're working on right now? The Evertune bridge system. Same thing. You guys talk about it enough, we'll get it on there. Same thing with those guitars. You just mention what you want, we'll get them on the channel. Brad Guitar Miller, what's up, buddy? Brad Guitar Miller says, glad you're doing better. Thoughts on Thin Line Telly doing a Texas Toast build in October? Oh, you're going to go to the class? Is it the class? I should just read the rest of your comment. Says, in October, learning that way, but not sure how. I like it. Thoughts? Okay, so yeah, so you're doing the class. If you guys don't know Texas Toast Guitars, they do classes. They have 5-day build classes. And they teach you how to build a guitar. They have a set neck class. They have a shredder class, which is kind of like a super strat class. A lot of these I hate talking about because I think they're sold out. But if you guys don't know those guys, I really, really can take my hat off, so to speak, to builders like that. You got to understand, in my personal experience in the industry, most people who do repair and build guitars are personality-wise not the best socially personality-wise people. People tend to gravitate towards the work they're good at, and if you're not good with talking, you tend to be good with your hands, and vice versa. They are one of those unique people that I think are versed. They're versed in both. They're great communicators. They can teach. They're fun. They're honest. You know what I mean? Their personalities come across. Like I said, I always like talking about channels like them and people like them because, you'll get one comment, just like with me, right? Somebody will always go, oh, I don't like that guy. When everybody says anything like that, I always think, yeah, but at least because at least you're judging them on their merit. They are who they are. So congratulations to you, Brad, for doing the class. Do I think you'll like doing the Thin Line Telly? I think it's a great guitar to do. I think you picked a perfect one to do. They're doing the Great Guitar Build-Off this year. Obviously, I'm a little out of sorts as I feel like I was isolated from the world. Not only because, like I said, I was sick for a whole week, but then for basically a week, I had to be in isolation. As you can imagine, I'm not allowed to interact with anybody. So I haven't talked to them, but I believe it's coming up in June, July. Is the Great Guitar Build-Off. I know they asked me to be a judge or something like that, and or come out. I'm definitely up for whatever that is. I know one of the problems they're dealing with right now is that what they're doing the Great Guitar Build-Off, I guess it's going to overlap to the NAMM. I usually do, my philosophy for people is first in, first out. So in other words, if somebody asks me to do something and then somebody else asks me to do something, I always keep my first commitment. So if they still want me to come out, I'm doing that. I'm not going to, as much as I want to go check out the NAMM, I would skip the NAMM to, if that's the conflict. Because again, if I say I'm going to do something, I just do it. I would love, hopefully, and that would be a great way. Hopefully, I might get to meet Dylan Talks Tone. I think he's going to do a pickup class, and that'd be great. Interact with those guys, and whatever I can bring to the environment. Hopefully, it's just I'll bring my own beer and a good attitude, and sometimes that's usually enough to get you in the door and let you be somewhere. Like I said, a good attitude will take you far. So literally, I built an entire career off a good attitude. So yeah, great. I think it's a great guitar to do, and I hope you have a lot of fun. I know you will. Rusty says, I deck my trim bridges against the body to be dive only, and I put enough spring tension so that I can double stop bend. Okay, yeah, okay, so right. So when he's doing the double stop bends, he doesn't want the bridge to pull forward because it's going to have issues with the intonation of the pitch without going out of tune. It's hard to dive bar, though. Any way to do it? Yes, absolutely. What I would definitely, Rusty, what you would definitely want to invest in is that's when you may want like something like a tremolo. Okay, a product called tremolo. That is what one of the things it does. And there's another type of product out there that's like that. Again, if you go down that, I've told you guys this many times. Go to StewMac. source everything off StewMac's website. Everything that's there, it's very easy to find and find different variations of it. You don't have to purchase from them. You can go out once you know what the product is. Because again, it's not a StewMac product, just how StewMac sets up their website is very conducive to finding information. You definitely need a device like that. I would never suggest a device like that for blocking a trim only, but like I said, for what you're doing, because what you want is something that's going to, again, for doing, what you need, double stop bends, you don't want it to pull the bridge forward, but then when you push down the bridge, you don't want to feel like you're kind of forcing, against, like it's a workout. Again, the feel of the bridge is a big deal. That will definitely, as Ted Sanchez says, the FU tone trim stop. That is good. And Ted, and that's a great suggestion. And any of the trim stop devices are good. The tremolo, though, and devices like that, there are devices that have, like springs that push against the other way. See, that's part of the thing what he needs. He needs something that, again, holds the bridge back so it won't move forward when he doesn't want to. But then when he pulls forward, you want something that's pushing counter springs to push the other way. There's devices out there will do just that. Or you can, change out the entire bridge assembly to a different bridge that's just more conducive to doing what you're doing. But there's a ton of devices out there that will do that. And again, what you need is a little bit of that tension to push the other way so that it makes it easier. So you don't have to wrench down those springs so hard. Declan says, do you expect many new releases from Gibson? Very quiet last year, nothing big so far. I don't know, so I have no insight in that, but I would tell you this, that one of the things, I was actually, we talk about Fender release stuff, I was a little shocked to see Fender releasing so much stuff. And again, that's why I was cautious that they're, like, hey, it's coming out in a few months, because again, it's a little, makes you nervous, because a lot of these companies, what I do know is, I have many friends that still own businesses, stores. I was a retailer for so many years. I made a lot of retailer friends. My retailer friends have been very consistent telling me, as being Fender Gibson dealers, it's been a very tough couple years because of the pressure to put so much pre-order in. And, let's look at that logically. When you're a business that can force I'm trying to think of a nicer way to say force. When you can basically put pressure on your customer to make pre-order so deep, that's your focus. So I don't see a whole lot of that. What I would imagine is as new products come out, that'll really tell us how the market's really going, because I expect, just like on YouTube, as the market slows, I expect to do more content, because more companies will want to get products out to channels to get it in front of you guys so that you guys make some purchases so they can move some business. What I find is, because remember, in the height of the COVID guitar boom, there was almost no companies. It was very small, 10, 15% of what we normally would send out to channels were sending out to channels, which is why I had to buy so many guitars in 2021. You know what I mean? And we ended up doing like nine guitar videos in a row, almost in a row, where I bought every single guitar because of that reason. Nobody's sending stuff out. And you have to invest in yourself and your channel and hope that it works out. But the importance of this is they didn't have any desire. You were buying all the damn guitars. So like, we don't need to tell you to buy guitars. They're just doing that. So I would imagine that Gibson would follow suit. In other words, as sales slow or catch up, inventory and sales, as that kind of levels out, then it's like, okay, what do we get to do? Excitement. Let's get some stuff out there. So that'd be my guess. Epiphone's a perfect example too. Epiphone's just in perpetual back order. Like with a lot of known brands right now, it's just, again, demand is still, I've said this as recent as the last couple episodes, although I feel like the market's been slowing, we've been driving 125 miles an hour. The speed limit, if you're lucky to drive 75 miles an hour speed limit, we haven't even slowed down to the speed limit yet. We're not 125 anymore by any means, but we're definitely 85. We're still speeding. You know what I mean? So we're far from 2 miles an hour stuck on the freeway. You know what I mean? So same thing, as the guitar market slows, it's got to get down to, first of all, like I said, get to the speed limit where they can actually make the product that's being ordered and it moves fluently like this. We haven't even got to the point where there's, again, the demand has fell below what they can supply. So that's but that's my theory. Like, again, I don't know anything about the Gibson guys. The Gibson guys don't interact with the channel in any way. So I don't have any, every Gibson you see on the channel I've purchased except for one Epiphone they sent. And I like the other Epiphones too. I just buy them and put them on the channel. Because again, that's my commitment to this community. If companies don't want to interact with the channel or don't interact with the channel for thousands of reasons why, then we just put it on. We put it on the channel because it's a guitar channel. And if it's a guitar, I'm interested in it. And I've learned slowly to never say no to you guys. You guys done right by me. Huff Daddy 75 says, you ever play with a felt pick? Yeah. I don't know why I did. It says, love playing clean with a felt pick. It cuts out the string noise, especially when playing at low volumes. So yeah, I went through a felt pick phase in my life. I have a crazy collection of picks. I'm looking right now at them to see if there's a felt pick in there. I don't think so. Here's what I can tell you. I don't remember what it sounded like. I don't remember if I liked it. I just remember it was messy. There was just, like shredded toilet paper was everywhere. It was just shredded felt just all over the guitar. And probably because I was probably trying to use a felt pick like a regular pick. You have to probably back off your attack. It doesn't suit my thing, but what I like about picks and what I've experienced in my personal experience, like picks, I've said this before to you guys watching the channel, especially you guys that like all of us, a little addicted to guitar channels, right? There's no different than a sports enthusiast, right? You watch all the games and then you watch all the play-by-plays and then you watch the halftime shows or whatever the shows. Same thing with guitars, right? We love guitar, we listen to music, and then when we're not listening to music, we're watching YouTube channels talk about guitars, things we love. One thing I remind you guys all the time is that when making purchases, picks and strings will do so much to your playing, so much to your inspiration, in the idea of dollars to, dollar for pound, dollar for dollar. A pack of strings can change. Like I said, if you've never tried a pack of pure nickel strings, buy a set and stick them on a guitar. $7.99, I think, shipped straight from Sweetwater. Why not give it a try? A pack of picks for $4.99, something different. A 3-pack of something crazy. Try it. It's a huge dollar for dollar experience. Like I said, I'm trying some flatwound strings. That's why I've done videos like that. Flatwound strings. I've done tape wound strings. Pure nickels versus nickel wrapped. Stainless steel strings, all kinds of stuff. Just there's different gauge choices. And again, same with picks, changing up your gauge of picks, changing up the style of picks. And I liked it. I went on a journey of exploration with picks for me, where I tried every kind of pick I could think of. And I feel so centered in my life now. Like the picks I use are not habit of like, this is what I've always used, so I use them. It's like literally, it's because of what I discovered about myself. I told you, like literally I have them right here everywhere I go. I do use the Dabbas from time to time, but the two ones I mainly use are these Herco picks that are silver, and these are prime tones. And these two picks feel the same because they have raised, like what I call cat's tongue, how they feel, but they sound so different and they make me play so different. And I keep both around all the time. Like I said, if you watch the videos closely, you'll see whatever I'm demoing to you guys, if I'm more aggressive, it's the silver pick. And if I'm less aggressive, it's this amber pick. And I learned that although these aren't the holy grail picks for me, these do two things that I need them to do, which is nice. You know what I mean? Another pick I have tried, like the felt pick, that I just was not a fan of, was a metal pick. And that was another pick. And I tried brass. Brass I thought was better than metal as a pick. But again, as some players love it, to me, it was just like the felt pick. It was just too extreme. You know what I mean? I found myself, like I said, I'm just not into the extremes of that stuff. Kitty Cat Man 93 says, glad to see you this week. Thank you. I appreciate that. Just installed Pearly Gates set on my PRS SE single cut. That'd be a good set in a PRS single cut. 2 years watching your vids gave me the confidence to try my own mods and maintenance. That's fantastic. And I think that's a great set for that guitar. Thank you for that, Phil. No, man, thank you for being part of the weekly show and being part of the channel. Again, you know what I mean? It's really great. Maybe, again, I'm probably a little more humble than normal on this week's show because, again, I did kind of spend almost 2 weeks in lockdown. So, kind of, trust me, I had I had, if you guys saw, I posted on Friday. I couldn't make the show last Friday. I said, maybe Sunday. I was determined. I thought, oh, I'll do it on Sunday. And then luckily my wife was, again, smarter than me and said, maybe you should recover before you try to push yourself on the show. Talk for 2 hours. Derek says, hey, Phil, very glad to hear you're feeling better and was super worried when there was no live show on the podcast. Yeah, I'll tell you, I'll talk about that in a second too. Something that's funny about that. This is my question. What are your top 4 to 5 highest quality, best sounding pedals without considering price at all? Rock on. I love, I love pedals that are like all of us. I like pedals that are value for dollar. You know what I mean? Who doesn't like discovering something that's really good that's not super expensive? And because of that reason, I've kind of found over the years little pedals that do things for me. The downfall of the channel, you know what I mean? There's over 1,000 people hanging out right now. The downfall of this is every time I tell you guys one of my there's a pedal I like, the price of it just goes skyrocketing. So if you're one of the 5 to 6 to get one before it's too late, then it's a great score. But what I will tell you is, and this will help and not cause any kind of spikes in prices. What I will tell you about pedals is pedals. Something I've learned about pedals, as you guys know, Lawrence Petros is a friend of the channel. He's usually on the live show hanging out sometimes, and he makes great pedals, as you know. Lawrence is Friedman amps is a perfect example for me when it comes to an amp that for some reason I'm drawn to the tone. Some people don't like the Friedman amps. I love them. You know what I mean? There's just something about them. I have some obviously behind me right now. There's some beautiful amps here. There's a 2 Rock down here. There's a Tone King. There's the Ingle, the Paul Reed Smith, the Bad Cat. If you go up higher, there's some Marshalls, Seldanos. What else? I got another Marshall, Mesa Boogie, right? Oh, there's a Bogner behind my head, the Kemper. The reason I tell you that is just, again, to give you a reference of amps. But all of these amps, as much as I like them, especially I think the Bad Cat's one of my favorite because of how I play on it. Friedman, there's a tone that Friedman has that I'm drawn to. In other words, there's something about his style of the way he makes a sound, I'm drawn to it. Lawrence is another one. For some reason, there's something about the style he has, I'm drawn to it. So for me, another key pedal builder is Keeley. I'm really drawn to Keeley. And this is something that we've never talked about on the podcast. It'll be the first time we ever talked about this. They are companies that I absolutely love. Everything about them lines up for me. I like the personality, I like the products, I like the quality. But for some reason, their sound in my ears don't line up. I want to love them. And a lot of those companies are dangerous. They're actually worse than any other companies before, unlike any other company, I should say. In the idea that I'm constantly spending money hoping that I'm going to find the pedal that I love. There's just something about those pedals for some reason is good. I hear them, they're quality, but I don't connect with them emotionally like I do. A company that I absolutely love, and I think doesn't exist anymore, is Love Pedals. I'm really connected to a lot of Love Pedals. I have a lot of their pedals. And again, this is why I hate bringing them up, because almost all of their pedals, I can tell you right now, I've bought for $100, $125. The OD11 is one of my favorite pedals. If you could pick it up for $100, $120. But anything more than that, I don't know if I would, I don't know if it's that good. So when it comes to pedals like that, I'm trying to do more pedal videos. I'm building a custom pedal board right now as we speak. I'm looking at it on the desk in front of me for the channel. And again, I've always pushed away from pedal videos because the views drop. But again, I'm not really focused that way anymore. I haven't been focused that way for the last couple of years. Since COVID, I haven't really focused that way. I'm more focused in again, the community aspect. I've learned to really value you guys, and in valuing you guys, I think I've grown the channel in a way that I never was able to grow it before. Not by size, which I find is irrelevant, because size just makes you chase size. If all you care about on your channel is how big your channel is, that's all you can ever focus on, is because everything is you got to do bigger, or somehow you're rolling backwards. What I've learned for me is that embracing your community is powerful. It's literally, it's everything. It's different. And in these times, it's been the difference between sanity and insanity for me. So those are pedals that I like for highest quality. And I think like Keeley again is very reasonable for what it is. I'm trying to think of something else that I love a brand of pedals that I like, especially when it comes to, I like Nuix stuff, Nux, whatever you want to call it. I like their quality pedals as well. They make good stuff. So I'll try and, Derek, I'll try and work on that some more. That's one of those things I'm working on is more affordable based pedals and stuff. Because I like them. In fact, one of the things I'll tell you is I don't know if or when it's going to happen, but I've talked to the Sweetwater guys. You guys have seen had YouTubers go out to Sweetwater. I've had talks with them many times, very recent, about going out in the next few months and going to the facility and, of course, doing some video content about the 55-point inspection, the repair process, stuff like that. Stuff that would be really in line with the channel and maybe talking about. And I'm always very upfront with them. They're very upfront with me about, this is what I'd like to talk about and discuss and disclose to the channel. And they were very like, okay, thank you for the heads up, because they want to discuss with we don't want to get in a situation where I get there and they tell me I can't do something. And one of the things they talked about was maybe doing a video about my pedal board. And one of the things when I was building my pedal board, I was kind of chuckling was, I don't know if you guys are going to be all that impressed. Like in your head, you're like, I should blow people away with like, oh, you never seen this pedal and this is another exotic thing. And instead, my pedal board is like the most, like, average pedal board. So I guess I'm just not into the exotic, pedals. I'm just not into the whole, you never get your hands on one of these. They only made 3 on a Thursday and you had to be friends with somebody to get one. I'm just not into that. E.R. Webster, what's up, buddy? I've been watching your Instagram. You're one of the few things I got to watch during COVID was your necks and stuff on Instagram. I would at least scroll through the Instagram and stuff. It's good to see it coming along. It says, what is the coolest looking piece of wood you've seen on a guitar? Your favorite species or natural finish? Oh, that's interesting. Because again, it kind of, as I told you, this is where I kind of suck. Because I don't have, I'm like looking around the room. Is there any exotic looking cool guitars? One of my problems is, again, everybody has like these, as you grew up with instruments, these things root in your head very young, as you're young. One of the things that happened to me was Schecter guitars, I think, ruined me when it comes to guitars, because when I think I've talked about this, early 2000s, let's say 2000, right? Late 90s, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, that era, Schecter starts popping up as, in the guitar centers. That's kind of how I remember it was around that time frame. And I remember like seeing those beautiful like C1 classics, and they quilted maple. And I remember being awestruck on how beautiful these Schecters were, because you could touch one, you could see one, right? I'd seen Warrior guitars. If you haven't seen Warrior guitars, you Google Warrior guitars. They're like PRSs on steroids. PRS, Carvin catalog. Remember the Carvin catalogs? The tops on those guitars, like exotic looking guitars, were for rich dudes. I didn't even see them in person. I have no memory of walking in a store and seeing a beautiful Hamer or a PRS. Like, I don't have any of those stories growing up as a kid. I grew up in Arizona. Stores there just did not have the stuff. You know what I mean? Like that. There was no store you walked in and there was a row of PRS private stocks. None of that stuff. So, beautiful exotic wood guitars were something you saw in guitar magazines. You know what I mean? What you saw was like washed out flame tops and stuff like that, right? Maybe the closest thing I saw was some really beautiful quilted early Music Man accesses at Rainbow Guitars down in Tucson. A couple of quilt tops. You'd see that. The reason I tell you this is by the time I could physically touch those guitars, they were the fake ones, the veneers, like Schecter, and they were gorgeous. And then, in like everybody, my first reaction to Schecter, I think Schecter's one of those few brands where my first reaction to their new line of Diamond guitars when you saw them was, how do they do all this for $399? Because remember, that was the price, $399. You could get like $499. You could get a Schecter Classic, which had the exotic inlay work. Back then you just didn't know what you know now, which is like all the filler and stuff they put in there. The CNC did it, and then they filled it up with black filler. But the wood was gorgeous. And the reason I tell you that, ER, is that one of my hangups now is that when I see gorgeous guitars, when I see $10,000, $20,000, $5,000 exotic wood guitars, I go, oh, this looks cheap. Because to me now, when I see exotic looking guitars, wood, I think, well, I've seen that on all the cheap guitars. And it's my theory, by the way, has been for years, why I think relic guitars took off is that when I did a video called like our relic guitars for posers, that was because Glenn Fricker was in the video and that's what he said. But it was Ryan from Six Sickle Hum, China Guitar Skeptic, me, Ryan, and Glenn Fricker. We did a video on the channel called, our relics for posers. And we discussed, relics, their value and stuff. And one of the things I said in that video and I'm saying now is that relic guitars to me look expensive to this day. Very rarely, like vintage guitars have done relics. Obviously, road warns have done relics. There's a few, I want to say more affordable price guitars. ESP LTD's done a couple relics. Like all of the really inexpensive relics, to me, you see them and there's no thought in my head. No offense to any of you guys that like those guitars. But when I see vintage relic guitars, the brand vintage, when I see those guitars, I don't look at those and go, "Whoa, is that a $3,000 guitar?" Like I instantly know, like that's like fake relic. In other words, they're all fake relic, but I mean, like it's not expensive. To me, when you see guitars relic well, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying your brain goes, "Oh, it's expensive." Like like if I walk in a store today and I see a relic Strat, your first thought is like, "That's expensive." You know what I mean? And it's because you just don't see the lower price guitars kind of handle that very well. Where the veneers, they can veneer stuff. Yeah, Brian's saying Fano is a good example. Fano is, again, another company. When I saw the first time I played a Fano and the relic on it, it was like, I didn't know anything about them. I just knew it was expensive. And then my friend's like, "Oh, it's like $3,000. I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense." Hand it right back to him. And then I go, because it made sense, right? This is why I said, so I don't own a lot of exotic wood guitars because the fact that when I see them, sometimes they don't ping me as more expensive. They ping me as less expensive because I find that some of the less, and sometimes it's depressing. One of the things that like about PRS that's kind of funny is that, you get a 10 top PRS and it never looks as good as just a veneered cork guitar. Right? Actually, that's a perfect example. Out of all the PRSs I have, the best top, hands down, not even close, not even a close second, hands down, is my PRS Custom 22 Semi-Hollow SE. That top, that veneer on there is so far beyond my 10 top guitars. Like, it's just gorgeous. It looks, like I said, the PRS would never, you'd pay $5,000 to get a PRS made in USA with a top like that. And maybe even more. So, I don't know what exotic woods I like. So I look around. I think, I don't know. I don't have anything. Like I said, I don't have a single guitar that I could reference to as like, "Oh, I love that exotic wood." So there, sadly enough, nothing exotic. Sorry, you are. And he was responding. What did he say? He said my perspective was fascinating. He said, again, it's not anything other than, like I said, how what you saw as you're growing up. That's where a lot of your value, especially in the music career, what I mean, is where you come, what you saw. It's the guitars you couldn't afford. Those are stick in your head as those are the exciting premium instruments. James says Mybach makes the best relics. Mybach. The downfall of those guys is they're the reason why I went on the Les Paul hunt that I went on. My R9 is because of Mybach. When I was in Germany, I got to play some Mybach guitars. They're made in the Czech Republic. Like you said, they make fantastic relics. I played a Mybach Les Paul copy. It's the best Les Paul I've ever, to this day. They wouldn't let me buy it. I begged them, and begged is maybe an overreach. I'm kind of like, "Hey, we're really great if you send one out to the channel." And they were like, no, they didn't want to. If you, this was 2019. I remember, I'll never forget this. When I met the Mybach guys, is right after Gibson threatened everybody with that, the Play Authentic video. And they flat out told me, like, "Yeah, we don't want to send anything to your channel. We don't want any of our Gibson-esque guitars in the United States right now. We don't want the attention." And so they wouldn't even sell me one because they were afraid that if they sold me one, I would do a video about it. And then I spent the last like 2 years, 3 years, trying to get a Gibson as good as the Mybach, and I couldn't do it. So, and you can pick up a Mybach for $1,500. It's not cheap, but it's not $6,000. And I think that's part of the problem I had with that Gibson. And I hate to say it with my R9, as much as I like my R9, it's just, I think the Mybach was better. I think it was a better quality instrument for the price. I think you got everything you liked out of it, and fantastic feeling instrument. And yeah, but they can't find them in the U.S. You can find a little bit here on Reverb, there and there, here and there. My problem is that, I'm picky about the weight of guitars. And a lot of times when I can find Maybach dealers that are willing to ship to the United States, there's just no information. You email them, you're like, hey, can you tell me if this guitar weighs under or over 9 pounds? And they never respond stuff. There isn't like a real credible dealer to deal with in the U.S. But if that's different, if somebody knows a good Mybach dealer, you can get somebody from the United States, or some of you guys are dealers watching this. I'm up for a Mybach anytime. I like I said, I think fantastic guitars for the price. So we're talking about Eastman. Eastman's probably where I'm going to go next. Like I said, for a Gibson style guitar. Griselda says, I have a newish bass. Okay, I understand what that means. With a clear varnish on the neck. I wish I got vintage finish. Would exposing it to the sun hasten the vintage look? Glad you're in the mend. Okay, so thank you. I appreciate that. Let me understand this. So it has a clear finish on the neck. Oh, and so you want it yellowed. So your question is, if you expose it to sunlight, UV light, will it yellow it? Well, first I'd have to know what the finish is. If it's nitrocellulose lacquer, if it's lacquer, then yes, it will yellow and UV will speed the process up. But you understand, it's not like you're going to put it out there for like an hour or two. It's going to be a long process. I don't know how many hours, but it's not in the tens. It's in the hundreds of hours. If it's polyurethane, the answer is no. It probably won't do that at all. So sadly enough, no. If I was going to do that, if I was you, and if you had a nitrocellulose lacquer finish on your neck and you were trying to yellow it, and you're going to try to do it, I would actually look at maybe getting a UV light. It's not hard to find. Go to Amazon, find a UV light it'll tell you like how much UV, whatever, blah, 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 not lumas, but you know what I mean? It'll be blah, 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 like so many sun. You can use them for like plants, right? So that's probably what I think you're probably end up with, something that's designed for like hydroponics and stuff like that, plant stuff, and maybe put the base under that, underneath that light. I've seen that in factories where companies not cure, but vintage, part of the relicking process is they use a UV light, and the UV light, the light lacquer. But again, you know what I mean? I've seen them put guitars in tanning beds too. I've physically seen that. But it's not like you're going to do it it could take a long time, but it will yellow ever so lightly. So, but that's how that stuff yellows. But again, if you're polyurethane, I wouldn't even waste your time. It's never going to happen. Ian says, I'm glad you're feeling better. Have a few guitars. Looking for an amp that I can play R&B and Prince, Vox AC15, Vox AC 18 TB, Fender Blues Junior, Orange R. It's talking about Orange R20 RT. All of those will do R&B. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? All of those are really good. I'm a Fender-esque guy. You can see from my amp choices, obviously the 2 Rock, the Tone King. Those are definitely in the vein. My PRS Custom 50 amp over here, these are definitely in the Fender vein. They're obviously my Fender amps. And then, of course, I have my Marshall vein. To me, I would get the Blues Junior and put a pedal in front of it, and I would get everything I need out of that. That's what my suggestion would be. I'm sure the Orange would. Again, the Vox is tough for me because as much as I love Vox, I've just never found a Vox I've bonded with. I have a Dr. Z Maz 18, which is kind of Vox-esque, and that's as close as I get. And then the Bad Cat has a little bit of Vox. What am I trying to say? A little bit of Vox anatomy in it, and that's as close as I get to the Vox sound. But to me, Prince, When I think Prince and I think R&B, I think Telly and a Fender amp. That's what I think. And then some good pedals. James Dean Anderson says, went into the Guitar Center. 3 Les Pauls were scratch and dent. All 3 had broken headstocks. Oh my God, that's horrible. That's not scratch and dent. No shit. Says, found a cheap Vox Veltronics amp though. I just had to retube it. Sounds better than my Katana. Sure, yeah, the Vox Veltronics is a great amplifier. Yeah, you know, I've seen crazy things at the Guitar Centers. That's definitely a Guitar Center thing. If I was going to say there was definitely a Guitar Center thing, which is this leaving the guitar victims of the customer abuse up on the walls. It's a very strange thing. Not only, I have actually, you know, I actually have seen this. I tested it. I just never did a video. I bought a Ibanez micro bass, and it was, in my opinion, scratch and dent to holy hell. And I happened to be traveling. I needed a bass. It was $199. It was in the Guitar Center, and $199 being the street price, the map, the retail. And I was with a friend, and I remember saying, and we did this. And again, I had my YouTube channel because this is only a couple years ago. And I don't know why I didn't make a video. I don't know why we didn't do it, but it was kind of, that was the discussion. We should do a video about this bass, because what happened in this video, or in this video, in this scenario, what was interesting was the bass was definitely abused. It was definitely, under any normal, reasonable person would call this a B-stock instrument. It had fret sprout pretty bad. It had scratches and dents in the body, right? I mean, it was definitely an abused instrument. You could tell that it had just been abused. I think there was a chip in the headstock, a small one, and there was no other instruments like it. You know, in other words, it's a selection-wise. I needed this for a situation we were in. I needed a bass, and I needed a short scale, and I needed it then. And he looked at me and said, "Are you going to ask him for a deal?" And I thought, that's why I said, I thought I was going to make a video. I go, no, maybe we should make a video. And we didn't secret film them. And maybe that's where I think why we never made the video. I walked up to the counter, I'll never forget this. And I said, yeah, I'd like to get this bass. And I told him as we were walking out, I go, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hand him the bass and see what they say. I want to see if the salespeople say anything. Like, oh, sir, you know, this has been a little damaged. Let me give you a discount or something. Instead, I handed the bass and I said, yeah, this is new, correct? And they said, oh, yeah, it's absolutely brand new. And I said, oh, okay. And then they rang me up for $199 plus tax, and they handed me the bass. And we left, and I remember telling him, I go, you know, talk about screwing over your customer. I mean, I was just, I can't believe it. And I remember it was like 2 employees had seen the instrument and looked it over. And I remember telling him, like, I've never seen that before. I never would expect any company, you know, a retailer, to not see something obviously as being damaged and not say anything to the customer. Like, hey, it looks like, I don't know if you noticed, there's some damage on this instrument. Let's take care of that. Or here's a deal, or, you know, or we can get you a new one from the, you know, something. They didn't have any new ones. We knew that. We already talked to other sales rep. So like I said, I find that Guitar Center's policy is buyer beware when it comes to new product that's been damaged. And so the reason I talk about that is, again, like I said, I really hate this. There's companies like Guitar Center and PV where I hate kind of like just the constant feeling of like we're bad talking them. But again, I can't also not be, I mean, I can't be responsible for just telling you what happened in a situation. That happened in a situation. And although I can't prove that another store wouldn't do that too, I just never seen that before. And so when you mentioned the damaged Gibsons, I've seen that, exactly that. You walk around the Guitar Center. I like it when, in other words, not, I personally like it. Interesting. I find it interesting when you're in a Guitar Center and there's instruments that are obviously damaged, but they're locked. And you're like, this is obviously damaged. Like, why are you locking this up? At this point, this should be the display. But I don't know, crazy. So like I said, I'm not shocked to hear that they had a couple of broken headstocks and they just have them for display as scratch and dent. So I did, however, I want to say this because, again, this is a relevant story. I did have an experience at Guitar Center where they did recognize me as the YouTube channel. They knew me. They were like, hey, I know you. And I'll never forget this because it was really weird. Right? It was definitely a moment where I could say this is definitely a weird thing. I don't know if I was with one of my buddies or not at that time. I feel like I was with somebody. here's what happened. They had these, I don't remember if they were Daphne Blue or Surf Green, but they were Fender limited edition cases. They had these cases stacked up underneath the guitar. So if this is the wall of guitars behind you, then on the floor, they had these rows of cases. And these cases were expensive, like $200 cases. And there was a kid and his mom and a dad. They knocked off an instrument. I don't remember which one. I want to think it was a Squier Telly. Whatever they did, they knocked an instrument off, or they went to hang it and it fell. And it fell and just hit this case. It was so violent and loud. It's like, wham! And I was like, whoa, like everybody in the store, there's probably 6 people in the store. It was not a very packed day. And everybody saw this thing. And I remember and my personal experience was like, as a, obviously having a retail store for almost 13 years was like, I know that feeling, you know what I mean? That sucks. That's a suck conversation to have with that customer. That's a suck day. Everything sucks. And so I remember making the face like, ugh, but then I went back to what I was doing because, I don't work there. So I'm just doing, looking at stuff. I think I bought a pedal. And I remember as I was walking out, I don't know if it was a manager or an employee. I don't remember, but somebody physically stopped me. To the point where they touched my shoulder. This is COVID time, so this is a big deal, right? They touched my shoulder and I turned around and they said, hey, just want to let you know, we took that case off the floor. And I was like, oh, okay. And they go, yeah, so, we looked it over and it's fine. And I go, oh, okay. And I remember leaving thinking are they afraid I'm going to make a video or something? But that's kind of how it felt. And, but I was so impressed by that. That's what I'm telling you now. I was actually impressed that it was the opposite of what I've experienced in the past, where things happen and they don't care. So again, it's just one of the things that sucks about Guitar Center. Like I said. All right. Hold on a second. Let me just mention the last one is Francisco. Please don't do any more super chats because I got to hit these and then get to some of the non-super chats back and forth a little bit and move as quickly as we can. Since I'm moving a little slow today. And I appreciate you guys working with me as I'm not in the full swing of things yet, I guess. It's James Dean Anderson says, we did James. Chuck Miller says, hey, I agree. Epiphone versus Gibson. I have an Epiphone Les Paul Jr. One pickup, can recommend a budget P90 that will fit the bridge humbucker and never had a P90 before. Sure. So what you want is a humbucker size P90 pickup. There's a couple out there, but I really like the DiMarzio ones. There's a couple brands out there that I can highly recommend. Some of you guys are going to mention like Lawlers, or somebody's going to mention, some Lindy Fralin's, all kinds of companies out there that make all kinds of great. Obviously, Seymour Duncan makes the Fat Cats and stuff. But I've said this before, and I'll stick with it. Again, to me, as a pickup, somebody who makes pickups are about somebody's ear. You know what I mean? It's I just recently, hopefully have a video about my pickups soon. Not to be about my pickups, but about this philosophy and this logic as I was explaining it to a friend. You have an ear and you tune things to that ear, so to speak. I don't care if you make pedals or amps or guitars, whatever, there's a sound you like. And, just like a chef, you flavor things the way you like. And you wait for the people that think and, listen and taste like you, to find your product. What I will tell you is DiMarzio pickups have always had a very P90-esque vibe to them. When I think of the chopper, when I think of their rail pickups, when I think of their single coil humbuckers, when I think of their like I said, they voice P90s they voice pickups very P90 to me, where the mids kind of punch. That's the magic of the P90. The magic of the P90 is those mids. It's like everything you like about a single coil, and then everything that you don't like about the single coil has been fixed, which is that it's, usually very trebly, very thin. It doesn't punch like a humbucker, but it has these harmonic tones that you love. That's one of the things that magic about single coils is they have a lot of harmonic, upper tone harmonics because it's highs, where P90s can give you a little bit of that, but a bark. You know what I mean? Something that just punches. And remember, most P90s are hotter, more punch, more power than a humbucker. You know what I mean? They're going to be louder. They're going to kick. That's what's great about a P90 through a Marshall, a vintage Marshall. It's just a thing. It's very throaty. So I like, for that reason, DiMarzio's take on P90s because of that reason, especially their humbucker size P90. I've done a shootout with those pickups. You can check out theirs in my videos. That's a pickup, and it's reasonably priced. You can pick them up new or used. You don't have to worry about $150 boutique kind of pickup. Very reasonable. I don't think you'll ever be wanting for it. Christopher says, "Hey Phil, I've heard of guitarists using the Boss ODB3. Have you personally tried it on a guitar?" I have not. I don't know what the advantage of that would be. So what he's talking about. So here's the deal. Here and then this will explain why my answer is going to go the way it is. The Boss ODB is a bass overdrive pedal. And to me personally, through bass, even bass, I have never used bass pedals. I've always used guitar pedals for bass. One of my bass teachers, one of the teachers I got to take lessons on early on when I started playing bass, his name's Ray Riendo, fantastic bass player. Like if you ever want to see somebody just really blow your mind. And he would use wah pedal, and his wah pedal technique was just beyond amazing to me. And he would use a guitar wah pedal. And I remember thinking, like, aren't you using a bass wah pedal? And he'd use a guitar wah pedal. And what happened is exactly that. I just never felt myself like needing bass-centric pedals for my bass rig. That being said, I wouldn't use them for guitar either for that reason. The only advantage I could think of, or the only reason I would think a guitar player would want to use a bass overdrive pedal, is that most bass pedals that are guitar-centric, like an overdrive pedal that's bass and overdrive, is that they can send a clean line to the bass. So the bass ODB has two outputs. One is going to be the effect and one is non-affected. Main reason is because bass players, obviously, if you turn on effects, sometimes you lose the low end and all of a sudden there's a big suck, right? Bass players are notoriously known for all of these things. You know, you're playing and they kick on some effect, and then all that low end's being produced to fill up the sound of the room. It just goes away because now it's going through the effect. So a lot of bass pedals will have a clean line that they can keep a constant bass signal going. I guess if you're a guitar player and you wanted a clean signal to go all the time, but the reason why I wouldn't suggest that is if that's something that you're interested in, I would just try an AB box. You can buy an ABY box and do the same thing. You can send a clean signal out to a guitar amp and then effect at the same time. So there's nothing I would find interesting about that. But I also don't have reference of what you're saying when you say guitar players use this. There might be guitar players that found a cool sound for that. But I will tell you, before I would suggest buying a bass overdrive pedal to try whatever these guitar players try, I would invest in very inexpensive. You can get an ABY box. I mean, I'm a big fan for radial. That's going to $120. But I mean, you know, for this purposes, you can buy yourself an ABY box for as low as $20 somewhere on Amazon or whatever, and turn any pedal into that and send a clean signal, and you know what I mean, and an affected sound. Vim69 said, for the hotel fund, man, thank you so much. I'm going to make sure to tell my wife. And Derek says also, he also did a thing for the hotel fund. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. It's one of the things that makes you nervous when, like I said, you're self-employed, is when you get sick like that and stuff. It gets a little really nerve-wracking because you can't work, you can't do anything. Actually, what was more frustrating than the being sick was after I started feeling better. You know, I still was COVID positive, so I couldn't fill any orders. I couldn't do anything. I can't touch people's stuff. So I had to wait, you know what I mean, until you're safe to touch people's stuff. And that, if you haven't experienced it out there, that was it was bad. It was like, you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm ready to do stuff, but I can't literally interact with anyone. I can't touch anything, can't do anything. That was a little first time for me. I think first time for a lot of us, this whole isolation thing was really weird. Red Eye Bloom says, with the understanding that YouTube doesn't favor your bass reviews, it's not YouTube, it's you guys. Have you done any Schecter bass reviews, or have you considered it? I haven't done Schecter bass reviews. I have some bass reviews coming. Again, you know, like I said, I hate talking about on the show, like, these are coming, because then I feel like they just get pushed out even more through the Murphy's Law of it. But yeah, like I said, I've already decided. I come to the kind of realization, like, I'm okay with it now. I don't really care what it does to the channel. The extreme. Just look at the videos I put out this week. I did a video where I got a video and it's got like 50,000 views, and I got a video that got like 8,000 views. Both of those are very good. I'm very pleased to get any kind of views, but you know, extremes, obviously, right? And that's what I've decided is resolved over the last couple of years. Like I said, we just put out the content. What I only care about, so you know, is whether or not you guys, not YouTube, not like I said, it's just I get it. You can, every channel can hit viral videos on accident. You know what I mean? Anybody can hit some, and viral is perspective of your channel. You know, if you normally get 100 views, you get 10,000 views, that's going to be viral. If you get 10,000 views, you get 100,000 views, that's going to be viral for you. You know, but it's out, what I've learned is it's outside your normal community of views. You start noticing, you're getting views outside of that. And so, you know, I don't know the exact number, but, since in the last couple of years, let me pull one up right now. So I can tell you for sure. So I can actually give you real analytics that's accurate. Because this is not what you're I know for a fact you're not used to hearing. There it is. Hold on a second. Okay, so normally if you guys watch a lot of YouTube, you hear YouTubers say this all the time. They're like, hey, so you know, 70% of the views are non-subscribers. Please subscribe to the channel. I can tell you right now, my stats in the last 28 days, based on the last 28 days, 84.5% of the people that watch videos are subscribed. 15.5 is not subscribed. I've been consistent like that for 2 years now, ever since I changed my mentality about how I value views. I am literally focused on you guys. When I look at analytics, I look at analytics based on you guys, what you watch, what you don't watch, what you find interesting. And again, when I say that, not views, but literally, like, if I get 1,000 views or I get 100,000 views, what I give a crap is that the people that watched it enjoyed it. That's all I care. I've learned to care about that. It's the best advice I could give anybody for your sanity. This is for your sanity. Because again, otherwise you're chasing, you know, some dragon tail of, you know, like, how do I get a viral video? You're just going to make yourself nuts. And the reality is, if I make a video, whether I get 10,000 views or I get 100,000 views, all I care about is whoever watched it, did they enjoy it? When I see 200,000 views and I see like, oh, I got a little bit more more advertising dividend on that. But I look and I go, wow, this, according to this, only 34% or 30% watch to the end. When I watch somebody at 10,000 views and it says 62% people watch the end, I go, that's success. That's why I say at the end of every video now, notice I don't say anymore, like, please thumbs up and like, and make sure to subscribe. I always say thank you to hanging out to the end, because again, I've just learned that's how I'm going to value this. You know, and it's going to be like forever, because it's never going to change. I've literally been a better person to myself, to my friends, to everybody, because again, like I said, I think the more you focus on those clicks, that's the YouTube game of they make you crazy. It just makes you crazy. I'm very lucky to have 1,000 people hang out every Friday and have any amount of them watch and hang out and talk about stuff like this. And I don't know if one day if the number goes to 2,000, that's great. One day the number goes down to 500, that's great too. You know what I mean? There's benefits to everything. But again, like I said, and you guys have definitely been supporting the channel. Like I said, the support comes from those, you diehards, man. You guys diehards are fantastic. You support in every way, and I appreciate that. James, what does James say? James says, Phil, what are the pros and cons of parts Fender versus off the rack Fender? Okay. So I think what he means is aftermarket parts. And James, I hope I'm getting this right. What's the benefit and pros and cons of using Fender licensed parts and Fender, not off the rack, but Fender, real parts versus Fender licensed parts, are parts that are like Fender. Not a whole lot, I can tell you right now. Some parts, you got to understand, if you were to look at Fender licensed authorized parts, because Fender has a whole packaging market on this, or Fender original parts, you can understand some of those things they actually make, and they are Fender parts from the Fender factory, and some of the stuff they just buy from somebody else, and then they put a Fender logo on it. Like Fender isn't making potentiometers. You know what I mean? Not that I've seen. Like, I've been to both Intonate and Corona multiple times, and I've never seen like anybody assembling the potentiometers. Those are bought somewhere else. And I think they come from Korea, from a Korean manufacturer. Again, it'll tell you on the packaging. That's what's great about Fender and its packaging. It's pretty upfront about everything, and there's always a parts number. And even if it doesn't disclose to you where something's made, with the parts number, if you so were inclined, you could call Fender Customer Service and say, can you tell me this part number, where it's manufactured from? They will tell you. They'll go, oh, part number 099, or usually Fender, it's always 099, 099 dash blah, 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 blah. They'll say, okay, yeah, this is manufactured in Indonesia. So in that regards, just certain parts you have to have Fender authorized parts. No, you know what I mean? Back plates, yeah, because there's a Fender logo. Look, what Fender really owns when it comes to parts at this point in the world is their trademark, the Fender logo. To me personally, if I'm replacing parts on a Fender, and we're not talking about like vintage or anything like that, we're just talking about a Fender. When I'm buying parts, same with Gibson. If I'm buying parts, if it's not the logos I need, you know what I mean? I don't really give a crap. Like for instance, I have a Gibson Les Paul Classic that I have in front of me. I'm staring at it right now. And on the truss rod cover, it said Classic. I didn't like that. I like the truss rod covers that don't say anything. I did not buy a Gibson authorized $29 truss rod cover because that's just, well, I don't want to say it's stupid. For me, it was a stupid purchase. I'm not paying $30 for, basically a piece of black plastic. You know what I mean? 3 inches of black plastic. That's just nuts. So, I can't make one as cheap as I can buy one. So I went on like, Reverb or eBay, because I just recently did this, and it was like $4.99 delivered to my door. And I even thought about like, well, maybe I just make one. And I was just thinking about how just cleaning up the mess is not worth, $5 is cheap. It was, like I said, $4.99 delivered. And I put it on my Les Paul. It fits perfectly. And I have the original one I put in the case. And I guess if I ever sold it, I'd have the original one, but there's no desire for me if I'm not looking for the actual Gibson logos or something like that. Same with Fender when it comes to authorized parts. If I'm not looking for the logos or something proprietary, there is a couple of things that are Fender, very Fender-esque, like a no-load tone control. Fender doesn't make it, but they have that spec. TBX controls by Fender are spec. In other words, that's stuff that you're not going to be able to find a lot of that stuff outside of Fender. Maybe you get that from Fender, but when it comes to Fender authorized parts, the reason I tell you all this is there's a premium. If there's a premium to it and it's not made by Fender, then there's no reason to buy it from Fender for the packaging that you throw away. So you just want to be savvy about that. That's not a hard thing to decipher and figure out. I think that's true with any company. You know what I mean? Aftermarket part companies. If you don't have to spend the money, if you're spending money just for packaging, it's never worth anything. Sora says, do stainless steel strings affect the longevity of stainless steel frets? No. There is the only thing, and since we're just talking because it's a guitar channel and we're obscure and we talk about obscure things, there is apparently an issue where if you use stainless steel frets and stainless steel strings, apparently when you rub stainless steel on stainless steel, like it emits a gas. It releases like a gas. This is an actual story, true story with Eddie Van Halen. This is a story that was told to me about, apparently when they put the first stainless steel frets on the Wolfgangs, apparently he noticed some kind of issue and they were trying to figure out the issue. He was saying there was a friction there and they changed the stainless steel strings to nickel wrap strings, and then he was like, oh yeah, this fixed it, whatever it was. And then they thought this was crazy. And I guess they talked to one of the technicians, one of the engineers, and the engineer's like, well, technically, I mean, they do, apparently rubbing stainless steel on stainless steel emits some kind of gas. And it'd be insane for him to hear that or feel that. But apparently Eddie felt that. That's the story. I just thought I'd share it with you because it's one of those crazy stories that I heard as an EVH dealer. That was something, behind the scenes told to me in a story. I'm sure it's out there. Somebody in an interview talked about it. That being said, I found no downside to having stainless steel on stainless steel. It's the unmovable force with an unstoppable object. I would imagine, I don't think I would worry about it anyway. Right? I wouldn't, I would be fine with it. The only thing I worry about is stainless steel strings on nickel frets. Those you have to worry a little bit about that. When I say worry, I've talked about this in the past too. I want to be very clear. When I say worry, again, it depends on how many hours you're putting on the frets and how many times you're playing the same exact thing. Those patterns are what's ultimately going to cause the divots and frets. If it is something concerns you, there's two things you have to do. One, maybe not do that on the guitar you play the same cowboy chords 5 times a week on. But more importantly, even if you're doing that, just make sure you keep your frets polished. Like I said, when you wear a spot in a fret, that's where it all goes to hell. Keeping them polished, which is very easy to do, which is reduces the friction. The friction is because as you cause a spot, whether it's corrosion or physical damage, as you cause a spot on a fret, that's friction. And every time you're playing, that friction is literally like sandpaper. It's wearing away at things. So again, the smoother you keep that surface, the less friction you have, less friction, less damage. That's all you have to do. If you have to have stainless steel strings on your guitar and you don't have stainless steel frets, just make sure your frets are polished. Don't overly think about it. Every time you change the strings, make sure you do a nice little polish. I have a ton of videos on that. You can get 3M sheets. You can do that. You can use steel wool. You can use fret treatment kits. I mean, I've done whole videos on this whole thing explaining every price point you can find something to polish a fret. Everything from free on up to 15 to 20 bucks. Meester says, glad you and your wife are better from the Rona. Yeah. Yeah. It was, like I said, the funniest thing about it was I honestly felt like I just had sinuses that Friday. I remember thinking like, oh, I remember telling you guys like, feeling a little down. And then nope, it was coming. Z Flash says, why aren't Ultra Luxes talked about more? I bought 2. I don't know. I think I can tell you guys. I think it's fine. I don't think I have an Ultra Lux Fender downstairs. That's Dovey Doss's, if you guys know his channel. I don't know if he wanted me to tell anybody that, but I have it for a video we're working on. Right? So I'll have one on the channel that way because that's how it got sent to me is through Dovey Doss. I'm Not Old, I'm Vintage says, is there a set of Blackstock pickups for HSS Strats? I've only made 2 HSS Strat combinations. One is from Joe, who owns Rat Pack Records. He got the very first set of HSS. As you guys know, winding pickups is not science. It's not magic. Okay. Buy a winder, you learn how to do it. And of course, through me, it's more about prototyping. I learned how to prototype out to where I want. The main sets I sell are the 3 single coils and the 2 humbucker sets, and I sell them as sets. And again, this will all be in a video discussing this, not to really kind of showcase my pickups, but showcase this, what I'm explaining to you, which is a very old school thing that I do is match pickups. It's a very old thing, meaning a lot of companies used to do it and then it kind of fades off and then it becomes a boutique thing. Matching meaning like when I make pickups, when I make humbuckers, I'll make, at least a dozen humbuckers. And I mean at least. And anyone who's been in the shop recently has seen all the pickups in rows that I have. And I meter them and I check them. And then what I do is I match them up to how I've learned how I like these single coils to come together, how I like these humbuckers to come together. And when I did the HSSs, it was the same logic. I want to kind of come to the approach. That's why I don't sell single pickups. Everything I sell is a set. Because of that, I'm matching the setup. I want them to do, again, because of one reason only. I'm trying to give an experience that you can't get somewhere else. I mean, what's the point of just being another person who makes, there's tons of people that make great pickups. And more importantly, there's tons of places where you can buy pickups for less than I can buy components to make pickups. There's no reason in today's day and age you can't buy a guitar pickup for $35. It doesn't sound good. They exist. That's the beautiful part of mass production and everything that's out there. You can find great stuff. I charge, like most people, for my time. It's how much time is spent in doing this. I have to kind of equate that to a logic. So to answer your question, I'm not on vintage is second quarter of this year will be the HSS set, which will be, again, a match set. And then that will be the third set I offer. I have P90s now, but those will be phased out. As much as I said, I like making the P90s for you guys, but again, I'm really focused on what I'm doing because, I want to do what I do very well and not worry about, making all this custom stuff. But so second quarter, I'll let you guys know. High Desert Hoodad says, any string trees really necessary? Are string trees really necessary? I like them. Are they necessary? No, they're not necessary because you can correct string tree issues by design. Obviously, designing a better headstock helps. Staggered tuning keys and all kinds of different staggered tuning keys can help a string tree or help with relieving a string tree. I personally like them, and I have no issues with them. Some players don't like them because they say they knock the guitar out of tune. I find that I don't have that issue at all with string trees. So I don't have an issue with string trees. And never had. So are they necessary? No, because again, design can fix that. But however, in some cases, like I said, with my Fender Strats, I tend to have them. Even like I said, my copper Strat, which did not come with a string tree, they used stagger and tuning keys. I was having constant tuning issues with that. Another thing that happens to me, and again, it's by this type of player that plays. To me, on the high E string, if I don't have a string tree, if I have a straight headstock, which is like a Fender headstock, so it's straight, and there's not a lot of downforce, there's no angle, like a 13-degree angle or a 17-degree angle, which is extreme like Gibson, but let's say a 13-degree angle. There's no angle on the headstock. My issue is not even anything other than this. I tend to pull the E string out of the nut slot. While holding a core, I'll pop it out this way. It's like weird. It's weird in how I make chords. I guess when I press, I push apart. I push the strings apart. It was just constant nightmare for me. So sometimes I need the string tree just on the high E. Of course, you put it on the high E and the high B, but I do it mostly for that reason. So again, it's just players, techniques, stuff they need. I found a use for having a string tree, but I mean, I've removed thousands of them for customers and had never had an issue because again, you can remove them and fix it with a ton of things, but I actually will put them on my guitars. Usually because of a failure of design. Usually, I'm the first one to admit, if you see a string tree on a guitar, it's usually a failure of the guitar's design. You know what I mean? The string tree is fixing a problem. It's exactly that. It's no different than any other thing like that. It's designed to fix the problem. Josh says, never jived with Fenders. Would it be crazy to put a Fishman Fluence and use Mod 3 for a various single coil tones in an HSS PRS Special 22? Love the PRS Special 22, by the way. Definitely one of the guitars that I would love to own one day. When I bought my Hollow Body 2, that's my regret. I should have bought that instead of the Hollow Body 2. No, nothing wrong with using Fishman Fluence for that at all. And nothing wrong with being smart enough to understand that, like I said, we talked about this earlier when we talked about pedal companies, right? Tones, you know what I mean? People's ears. I have friends, Ralph is a good example. Ralph just does not, it doesn't jive with Fenders. The sounds. So he finds a workaround. Same thing. I find that I find a lot of players tend to own Fenders and then just constantly fight with the sound of a Fender. They're like, especially on YouTube now, answering 250 of these episodes basically. So many players have talked about like, how do I make a Fender not sound like a Fender? And I'm like, I don't think you like a Fender. You know what I mean? I like the analogy of the Fender and fish. Right? And you can insert any brand you want in the word fish. It's like when somebody says, I like fish, I just don't like when fish tastes like fish. You're like, I don't think you like fish. Same thing. Like, I like Fenders, I just don't like Fenders that sound like Fenders. Well, I don't think you like Fenders. You know what I mean? Same with Gibsons. I like Gibsons, but I just don't, right? So sometimes I think you're smart. You sound like a smart cookie because you've already identified the thing, which is instead of trying to find a Fender that you're just never going to bond with, find a guitar you like and get it to sound Fender-esque. Sounds like a genius plan to me. I would be totally okay with coil split versus a single coil if like I said, I couldn't find a single coil sound I liked. Russell, thank you for the super sticker. Johnny says, loving my zither guitar stand, digging your logo. Thank you very much, Johnny. Johnny is a crazy supporter of the channel. I mean, crazy in the best way. Thank you so much. He got one of the limited edition ones and one of the new ones, and he supports the channel in every way. Again, what I talked about before, diehards like Johnny, finding every way you can find to support the channel has been more powerful than Johnny. You're more powerful than 100,000 views. It just, if you look at the dividend of what you've supported the channel in every way, like a lot of you guys, just being here every Friday, being part of the channel, supporting super chats, supporting Patreon, all the ways you guys support stuff. Appreciate it. Thank you, Johnny. Steven says, what's your opinion on Nash guitars? Fender Custom Shop on a budget? I wouldn't say that. I'm thinking about buying a Nash 63. Do you have any experience with this model? I've played a bunch of Nashes. I've worked on a couple. I like everything about Nash. Usually, like I said, anytime I go to Nashville, I go to Carter's Vintage Guitars, and usually that's where I get to play most of the Nashes I've played. They usually have a few laying around at any given time. I love them. I love those guitars. I just noticed I only kind of made the face about the custom shop on a budget. I don't know if I'd say budget. It's tough when you're like, $4,000 for the custom shop versus $3,000 whatever for his. It's not really like, I understand it's cheaper But not really. To me, what Nash saves you, like Nash is like any other brand like that. What Nash can save you over Fender Custom Shop, Fender would give back to you in resale value if you ever went to resell it one day. So it's not like it's a huge savings, even unless you, of course, keep the Nash forever, kind of thing. Nothing wrong with the guitars. Highly recommend them. Very cool. And I would not necessarily say after what I just said that I would buy a Fender Custom Shop over a Nash. To me, it's just exactly that. There's what I've learned about companies like Nash in this is that they'll give you more options. Fender is very like Fender figures out exactly what they like to do, and they do that. So, you know what I mean? Fender Custom Shop, and to me, Gibson Custom Shop is the same thing. It's almost like I want to say an oxymoron. It's almost like what do you call it? Fender Custom Shop and Gibson Custom Shop to me are the term custom shop is the weirdest dumb term I've ever seen for them. To me, like I like when PRS calls it like private stock, right? To me, there should be a term for premium, but not custom. To me, custom means like to my specifications, made to my desires. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes in the housing industry, they call them semi-custom homes, right? Where you can plug and play like, hey, we'll build you a semi-custom home. You're like, cool, I want a 3-car garage. Like, we don't do that. This is your options. You can have, these 3 things. That's how I look at Fender Custom Shop and Gibson Custom Shop. For the most part, again, I'm not saying they don't do custom, they do, but for the most part, what is just tagged as Custom Shop just means it's from the premium section of the factory. Although it's mass-produced and also put together in the way that they like to do it. Where I find companies like Nash and stuff, they offer you more variety of differences. So sometimes that's one of the benefits of that stuff. But the ones I played have been fantastic. Dr. Alberto says, hey, Phil, hope you're better. I am better, man. What is, in your opinion, the best-sounding coil split neck humbucker? Oh, okay. Okay, let me get back to this. Since I have a PRS S2 Custom 24, I've heard the 5909 sound great. What are your thoughts and recommendations? Sure. I don't even think you have to worry about a brand of humbucker or a type. What I can tell you is this, especially using, single coils are all about figuring out, what single coil player you like. For instance, I like John Mayer as a single coil player. Some people like Hendrix. I think John Mayer is another player who copies Hendrix, copies Stevie Vaughan. There's those single coil pickups to me. They live in the 5K to 6K response. Not response, but area. Okay, this is why this is important because although there's so many factors, okay, and just picking this one is kind of like not the best idea ever. One thing I would consider that's very important is that when you coil split a humbucker and you're cutting essentially this pickup in half, right? So 9K becomes 4.5K. You got to understand a 4.5K coil, single coil is thin. You know what I mean? Like there's again, more to the anatomy of, type of magnet, obviously all the other things that go into play, but just understand the basics of the fact that, to get a single coil, to get to a tone that I like in a single coil, let's just say before we go down all the thousands of things you have to consider, the one thing I'm going to consider is the winds. And I'm going to want it to be about 8,000 plus winds on a single coil bobbin. That's where I find that you start getting into 5.1, 5.50, 5.99, sometimes just 8,500 winds-ish puts you in the 6K territory. Again, a sweet spot, I think, if you notice, John Mayer likes to go for the 6K. That's, to me, where a lot of the 60s era, late 60s pickups kind of hit. This is important to this because aside from the 1,000 other things we have to consider, this one thing that we're looking at, I want you to consider now that if you were to take a humbucker and basically, you ground out one of the coils. That's what's happening. You turn off one of the coils by grounding it out. Now you have one coil, and that coil is like literally. I can't think of the winds right now, but I mean it's a fraction. It's not half, but it's it's a lot. It's 5,000. I'm just generic because I'm trying to think how many winds are on one of my humbuckers. But you're not going to get the power of that of the single coil, and that's what you have to think about. So one of the things I tell people is one of the things that I find makes a good coil split humbucker is when you see a humbucker like a JB A JB is a good example. 13K, right? You cut that in half. You'll watch it drop. You know what I mean? Now it drops to like 8. That's, to me, is too hot, right? But at least it's not thin. So that's one of the things I would think about is that you can look at that as specified. And again, those are all generic, but at least it tells you that's what gets you in the thing. That's why like I said, what I don't tend to like is anytime I coil split a humbucker and it goes right down to like really, I mean, sometimes it goes like 3.9K, stuff like that. I just know it's gonna be a little too thin. So, but like I said, then there's some trickery you can do to fatten that up with other things besides just the wire. But that's one thing to consider when making pickups. So like you said, the 5909s, I agree. I like them for coil split. Again, because they're a little hotter on the wind than the 5708s, which the 5708s to me get a little bright sounding for that reason. Rodney says, "Hey Phil, upgrading my pickups and my Les Paul DiMarzio Path Master Neck and Fortitude Bridge. Good pair, of course. I love that. So the Fortitude in the Path are some of my ones that I love the most. Remember, I always say Path because DiMarzio owns trademark on the name Path 36. I know it's a PAF. It's just I like saying Path because DiMarzio owns the name Path. It's a trademark name. Ben says $5 for the Buy Phil's Wife Flowers Fund. Oh yeah. That'd be nice. Love the channel. Life sucks sometimes, and live show makes it better. I appreciate that. I gotta say the same thing. I'll buy my wife coffee if you don't mind. I don't think she's a big flowers person, but she definitely. Everybody loves coffee. Most people. Okay, Richard. Thank you for the super chat, and then we have. I want to say. Fiakmar says, any opinion on putting high vibe in the PRS P20? I haven't done it. Obviously, I put a high vibe, installed it in the Taylor guitar. I like the high vibe system. Sure, why not? I don't think it matters where you stick it. It's a great system. I recommend it. It's very cool. Quality thing. The thing about the high vibe, I'll tell you the thing that really kind of kicks the high vibe is the one thing and this is the best way to kind of explain the high vibe system to most of you guys. If you haven't seen videos, I have a video of the high vibe guitar, and then of course where I did a Sharp Max where I modded up a Taylor with high vibe. The one thing about the high vibe that sucks right now during COVID is one of the best things about high vibe is showing your friends. Man, if you ever want a guitar that's just going to blow people away, the high vibe system does it. Once you start playing Bluetooth music through your guitar, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a guitar player or not. They're always like, wow, that's crazy. And then once you show them the looper and all that stuff, I mean, it's really one of those guitars that you just really like, as you interact with other people, it's really great. So during COVID, it kind of sucks because you're not interacting as much. But definitely for like busking and stuff, it's a really cool system. So yeah, why not put it in a PRS? I don't see why not. Kevin O'Lear says, have a cold one and a rolled one on me. That's funny. I actually have a joint I bought, we have legal marijuana here in Arizona. My wife and I bought 2 joints, I think. And they give them to you in prescription bottles, which are funny. And that's how I know we still have them, because we haven't done the bottles. We keep telling ourselves, like, one night, it's going to be the night. We haven't done it. Cold one, as you guys know, because we're having COVID, I had to push back the drinking the Iron Maiden beers, which was last week. Some of you guys sent me some Rush beers and some other beers, and I'll be talking about those. I'm thinking next week will be the first week I'll do it. It'll be a very interesting show. For those hanging out to the end now, we will know. Please understand, if next week's the week, I will do it when it's safe for me. Obviously, I feel 100%. What I want to tell you is, I hope you guys will get great entertainment out of this, because if I drink one of those Iron Maiden beers, which is like this tall, you got to understand that if I drink it next Friday, that'll be probably the first time I've drank in 3.5 weeks. And, I was like telling my wife, she's like, you're not going to drink that this week. I'm like, are you kidding? I would be slammed hammered in the first 20 minutes, based on how I feel. So, we'll have a good time. Like I said, that's part of our thing. I want to start doing every 4th episode, we'll do a review of a famous musician's adult drink. Richard says, what is the makeup on a $5,000 markup? Sorry. What is the markup on a $5,000 PRS 10 top from a dealer? The 10 tops are the nightmare of the PRS thing. I've said this before. Look, the margin on a PRS guitar is not much different than most guitars. It's about a 30% margin. Sometimes dealers can get as high as a 40% margin on a guitar like that. Very rarely do you see a dealer getting a 50% margin on that type of guitar. Custom shop guitars, sometimes yes. But on a PRS, it doesn't matter the price of the guitar, when it comes to USA guitars. USA guitars, USA guitars tend to not have very deep margins. The import guitars don't either, but they'll have more. I've told you this before. There's a hierarchy. Acoustic guitars have higher margin than electric guitars. Import electric guitars usually will have higher margin than USA made guitars because of the fact there's not a lot of need to discount USA made guitars. There's always demand. It's not about if you sell USA guitars, when, and it's always the same answer. When somebody has money, they buy it. Which is why YouTube channels, I've said this 1,000 times, very rarely do you see companies like send me a premium USA guitar. Most companies will send channels $10,000 with import guitars before they'll send one $2,000 made in USA guitar. Not for any other reason. They don't need really a lot of promotion to sell that stuff. So that's why like a lot of those I end up buying to put on the channel for premium stuff, because Firefly will send you 50 guitars without even thinking about it, and PRS wouldn't send you one higher in guitar. You know what I mean? So back to the margin, and this is real simple. I want to talk about this in a very important way. There's two things you have to discuss. The 10 top is about a 50% markup, and it's legit. It's a heavy markup on 10 tops. So the guitar has, and that's what's important, the guitar has about a 30% markup, and then the 10 top has a much higher markup, which is crazy. I've never been a big fan of the 10 top system. I did a video that was very successful early on in the channel where I talked about what I call the reality of 10 tops, which is, PRS just makes that up. The company, they pick out the wood. And so it's legitly done. I've said this. I don't know if you've seen. You can watch a factory tour to explain it. When they get wood in, first thing they do is they mark it. If I recall, and they still follow the same color patterns, I think they mark 10 tops red. So they go through the tops and they go, okay, this is the premium top, and they shoot them red, and they put red on the side of the blocks of the wood, and they know those are marked for 10. And then private stock will come in, and I think they paint them purple. They'll spray the best of the 10 tops purple. Maybe those are artist package, maybe those are private stocks. And then, but the analogy I like using would be the same analogy I used then. It would be like if you went to the produce section of your store and the produce manager went through all the bushels of apples and said, okay, these are the shiniest, these are the best apples. These are 10 top, these are 10 apples, and these apples are going to be more money. And then he picked a couple of those and the best and put those in the thing and said, those are private stock apples. Okay. No dents in them, no blemishes. The problem I have with 10 top is why when somebody says, I saw a 10 top and it's not that great, because exactly that. Remember, it's just like that apple analogy. It's the best picked of that moment. So imagine if they got a bunch of wood and it was all fantastic stellar stuff. You understand, like everything's going to look great, even if it's not labeled a 10 top, because they're going to pick the best ones at 10 tops and the rest of it looks great. So that goes out as non-10 top. That's why sometimes you see non-10 tops and they look fantastic. That's one reason. The other thing that can happen is they get a load of wood and it's not that great, just like a bad bushel of apples. The 10 top apples are still got a couple dents in them. You're like, what's with this? They're like, well, they were the best of what we had. There's that. And then you have to understand that in PRS as employees, like any company, and employees are making these decisions. And I've been friends with enough employees at PRS to hear this story 1,000 times over, where there's just not arguing internally, but there's disagreement internally. Like this is not a 10 top, and this is a 10 top, and what are you talking about? That top looks great. You know what I mean? And like this top looks horrible. And so there's a lot of discussion in that. So like I said, on the 10 tops, it's a higher margin because again, it's kind of all made up. In fact, I always can tell you guys how I always kind of prove that is that during the recession, the height of recession, that was the best time to be a PRS dealer. I was a PRS dealer during the recession. Even though the recession was horrible, one of the nice things is all my friends, and like I said, most of my customers are my friends, benefit from the fact that 10 tops are given away like candy. You'd call PRS and be like, okay, I need a custom 24 10, non-10. And they go, all we have is 3 in stock and they're all 10 tops. And they're like, oh, then we need to order a non-10. They're like, we'll just throw 10 in for free. Because it was just like, they got to get guitars out the door. So 10 top, all of a sudden, all the expensive 10 tops just got thrown away. It was like 10 tops didn't matter if it made a sale. My green PRS Custom 24 that you've seen, my Risa Verde that you've seen in a ton of videos, it is a 10 top, and I did not pay for the 10 top. It was literally bought in 2009, and it was literally for that reason. A customer wanted a green PRS Risa Verde, and they had a 10 top, and they said, we'll sell it to you. And I said, he doesn't want a 10 top. And they go, we'll just sell it to you for non-10 top. And I remember this story. His name was Jimmy, by the way, the customer. I called Jimmy and said, hey, they'll sell it to me, and this is the price. And I gave him the deal. And he was like, he just didn't know they were that expensive, I guess, at the moment. And he's like, I don't want to do it. But I knew that getting a $600 10 top for free was legit because, it's normally a $600 charge to the customer. So I was like, I'll take it personally. And I bought it because I got a deal. So that's the answer to your question. So on a $5,000 guitar, I would expect, even with the tin top factored in, I would expect the margin to be about $1,500. That's what I would expect. They're paying about $3,500, give or take a few $100, and then of course, whether they got free freight, depends on their program. Not that I see PRS doing that too much anymore, but we used to have a program. As you know, Ralph was one of the owners of the store, and he has a PRS, and if you ever heard him talk about it, his PRS was every year, if we hit our numbers with PRS, they would give us a free guitar. They let us pick a free guitar. And I remember the first year we got the free guitar and we sold it, obviously, because as a dealer, you're like, hey, that's money for the store because you sell that. And of course, that helps with the discounting. And the next year I gave it to Ralph because me and my wife and Ralph talked. And I said, why don't you take it this year? That was the benefit of being an owner. It's like, hey, you're going to bonus at the end of the year. Here's your free PRS. And then the following year was going to be my free PRS. And that was going to be my first PRS. I was very excited about it. And then that's the year they canceled the bonus. And they go, oh yeah, we're not doing if you hit your numbers, you get they did nothing. They're like, if you hit your numbers this year, you don't get anything. And then I didn't get one. And I only say that because I like to bust his chops constantly about it. Going, remember that free PRS you got? So there you go. And then the last question is going to be Francisco, who says, here's for another insane guitar shop story. Okay, well, I just did one. He says, for when you had your store, love those. Glad to see you're in full strength. Regards to my friend. Yeah, the thing about retail is it's never ending pool of stories to pull from when you deal with people. There's always another crazy story. My wife has been actually trying to help me with the show. She knows you guys like them. She's kind of took notice of that. And she's been making notes and giving them to me like, well, remember this time and remember this crazy time. These are things you can talk about. And she knows my rules, which is I don't want to like shame or hurt any of the customers of the store ever. I don't want to make fun of them for 1,000 reasons other than good taste. How about that? You know what I mean? But I like anytime I can kind of make fun of myself or a situation. I'll talk about that for sure. So because of that super chat, I'll make sure I have a good one next week because we went really long today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me this Friday. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Next week, barring any other craziness, we'll be doing the adult beverage review / podcast and what have you. Thank you guys for hanging out to the end of the show. It means a lot to me. Thank you for all the moderators that make everything hang out. RNA Music's question was, ever owned a great Washburn? I'll answer that next week, RNA Music, because I know you and I have both a love for Washburns, especially back in the day when Washburn, I think, was one of the best values on the market for the price. We'll talk about that next week. I'll start the show with it. All right, guys, as always, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me. Till next Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, know your gear.